Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube. We've made it, Sam. It is season time, week one. Games are tonight, and we're going to be going through all 16 NFL games right here.
Football day. It is football day.
It's real.
Back.
Yeah.
Off-season's done. It's finished.
Starters are going to keep playing. They're not going to come out.
Yeah.
It's all real.
Actual season.
So, couple housekeeping items right at the top here, because we're going to be making picks here. And the people have been asking for 9-year-old Harry's picks and our picks against the spread. And we have a new way for everybody to interact and get in on the action.
Yeah, so previously we had kind of ordered the games and we'd done a Discord game of the week based off just, what game was most close, what game was most even. This time we have a way for you to actually pick against us. But more importantly, it seems, at least judging by fan reaction, is you too can pick against Harry. Steve's how old son?
He's 9. Just turned 9.
Steve's 9-year-old
He's a young
son,
9.
Who, to be clear, was better than us, right? Picking? Yeah. So you can pick against
2 years
Harry.
in a row, I think.
Yes, you can pick against Harry and us. We will be picking against the spread each week. We have a sleeper pick'em league, which you can get access to via the Check the Mic Discord. Now, to get to the Discord, you need the link tree on my Twitter account, which is at Sam Monson NFL.
You have to remember.
Reminding myself of that.
You're NFL, I'm underscore. Should I go to
time.
NFL? Should I pivot to NFL?
It's a bit late now, right? Anyway, it's been a long time. At Sam Monson NFL. In my profile up there, you can see Linktree /Sam Monson. You'll find the link to the Discord in there. Get in there, and then you can find the sleeper pick'em leagues. We've got 2. We have a pick'em league where you can pick against Harry, and then we're going to have a survivor pool as well, where, standard thing, you pick the team, and if your team wins, you can move on to the next round, et cetera, et cetera. So the Discord is where all that's going to be. You can pick against us every week. And then, obviously, this is our first, the single biggest bit of feedback we got when we announced our move, right? We are leaving PFF. We're going over to the 33rd team. We're going to start Check the Mic. Everyone is like, what's happening to the 2.5-hour shows? Are they going away? Are you going to be forced to reduce them? Is it going to be shorter? What's happening? Don't lose those. Those are everything. Here we go.
Here we are.
Watch it. They're ready.
Here we are. We usually get these shows done in under 2 hours. Let's see how we do.
Do we?
I mean, I don't have any other responsibilities besides this show. We could be here all day.
We could.
I don't know if
other people could.
Davis and Ben and Tyler behind the scenes over here want to be here all day, but we could be.
Sure.
All right. Yeah. Is that enough housekeeping for now?
I think so.
Is that all we need to do? That and just hit the subscribe and hit the thumbs up, right? We're trying to grow this thing. We're trying to build it and spread the word and tell your friends this is where we are for the week 1 preview, and this is where we'll be for the week 1 review first thing Monday morning at 7 a.m. So that's, set your alarm for Monday morning.
Set your alarm. Or, of course, it will be, archived so you don't have to be up live.
Whatever. It's cooler when we're live.
Okay.
Talking to the chat.
That's fine.
All right. You ready to go?
Yep.
Week 1, first game. So I'm going to go in general chronological order. Thursday night, there's a Friday night game, all the 1 o'clocks, and we'll finish with Sunday and Monday Night Football. So week 1, first game, opening night, Baltimore Ravens at the Kansas City Chiefs, an AFC Championship rematch. It's on NBC at 8:20, and it's a 3-point spread in favor of the Kansas City Chiefs. Super Bowl champs defending their turf after defeating the Ravens 17-10 in that AFC Championship game last year. What are you looking for in this one?
And we're using the lines over at FanDuel. Is that what we're doing here?
Yes, that is the case.
Okay.
Right now.
So I have, for years, every time the Kansas City Chiefs run up against the Baltimore Ravens, I have found myself convinced that Baltimore has the keys to slowing down Kansas City and actually being better against them than most teams. And every time they do, it goes the opposite way. It doesn't happen. Kansas City rolls. I think they're 4-1 against the Ravens, something like that, since Patrick Mahomes has come into the NFL. And yet I continually find myself suckered into that. And if ever there was a reason it's going to be different, Derrick Henry in the backfield with Lamar Jackson, this Baltimore Ravens offense, feeding Derrick Henry from the outset. It's there. That's the recipe to keep Mahomes off the field, to just win with defense and a much more reduced game with only, a few drives here or there. That's how they win. So obviously, Kansas City will win by 50.
Isn't that what happens in the offseason when you, especially like the last game that you lost, you look at the game flow of that game. How often do you think the Baltimore Ravens are like, man, if we could do it all over again, we would have run the ball a lot more than we did in that game. And whether Derrick Henry was signed this offseason or not, they'd still probably be saying that, oh man, if we just controlled the ball a little bit more, we put a lot of pressure on our passing attack, Lamar made a few mistakes down the stretch, if we had just taken a little pressure off. So I think the Ravens, I'm going to predict they completely overcorrect, and 8 out of the first 10 plays are all Derrick Henry running against the Chiefs. And by the way, I mean, what you mentioned about shortening the game against the Chiefs, the Bills in the divisional round last year, and other teams have done that, like did a really nice job of it. They just couldn't make a stop. Right. The Bills, remember the Chiefs on their run played a depleted Dolphins defense, a depleted Bills defense. The Bills played this, pick up 3 yards here, 5 yards there, just keep controlling the clocks, shortening the game. I think the Ravens have the pieces to do that, and I think they're going to try it with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the backfield together.
It also applied a lot more when, the Chiefs offense was absolutely scintillating and unstoppable, and they were putting up points, at the best rate in the NFL. They weren't that great last year. So question number one is this Chiefs offense still what it used to be, or was last year a solid baseline for where they're going to be? Hollywood Brown, one of their big additions at wide receiver, is out for this game. Xavier Worthy, one of the other big additions at wide receiver, should be playing. Rashee Rice was the number one receiver, at least wide receiver, by the end of last season. What does this offense look like? Are they going to be able to bounce back and be, one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL again? Or actually, has this team evolved? And, okay, Mahomes, Kelsey, et cetera, those are still really incredible players, but last year, this was a team propelled by defense, and the offense just about held up its end of the bargain, as opposed to previous years where that was the inverse.
Yeah, so I think they're going to be better offensively. Patrick Mahomes last year, second worst passer rating on 20-plus yard throws. I've been using that stat a lot this offseason. Deep passing results are often down to the receiver as much as they are the quarterback. I think Mahomes was a little off last year, but certainly his receivers were more off last year. I think Xavier Worthy makes an instant impact. I mentioned this on one of our shows. When he's in the slot, they are going to dial up plays that put the defense in a bind. And so, to me, the key for the Ravens, what I want to see, Mike McDonald out. Does the scheme stay the same? Kyle Hamilton's usage. Remember last year, Kyle Hamilton going head-to-head against Travis Kelce. Early on, Travis Kelce catches the back shoulder touchdown in the AFC Championship against Kyle Hamilton. But Hamilton was a baller in that game, right? He had a whole series that he shut down with a batted pass and a screen and a pass breakup and a pressure, whatever he was doing. I want to see Kyle Hamilton play like a star. Again, I think he has that potential, but he's going to be the one that's potentially put in a bind when Xavier Worthy is in the slot with Travis Kelce moving around. Hamilton's going to be the key here. If he plays to his potential, right, and to his ability to affect the game in all phases, Hamilton's going to be a key in this one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he is one of those problem players from an offensive perspective. Looking at what he can do on defense, he can change the way you play the game. He was a lot like, I always reference him, very different style players, very different size, shape players, but he reminded me a lot of Antoine Winfield Sr., where there are things that you can't run to his side of the field because he shuts them down in a way that other defensive backs certainly simply almost never do. Hamilton was doing that for the Ravens last season. You could not run, wide receiver screens. You couldn't run a variety of things to his side of the field because he would get pass blockers into the backfield at the wide receiver where the ball was coming to and just shut it down for a loss immediately. And those turn into, the equivalent of run stuffs, where you lose 3 yards on a run. Disaster. Like running for a couple is not great. Losing 3 is putting you behind the chains for what was usually not a great play to begin with. Kyle Hamilton was doing that in the pass game. Like, you are turning what should be simple, positive, chain moving, positive EV type plays and turning them into losses and stuffs and disastrous plays for the offense. That is game changing.
2 more things to just keep an eye on here in this game. The offensive tackles for the Chiefs. Kingsley Suamataia is the second-round rookie out of BYU that's going to be protecting the blind side of Patrick Mahomes. He's going to be playing left tackle. Right tackle is Jawan Taylor. The reason why the Jawan Taylor thing is interesting because we talked to our friend Dean Blandino, friend of the show now, and a regular on Wednesdays. If you want to hear all the rules breakdowns, we'll have Dean on Wednesdays. We're talking about how the tackles can't be lining up as H-backs anymore, right? They can't be lined up way in the backfield. Jawan Taylor had that disastrous Week 1 game last year with all the false starts and illegal formations. Keep an eye on Taylor at right tackle. Sua Mata'ia as a second-round rookie at left tackle. They did not go the veteran route there. Do the Ravens have a chance to get that edge pressure against Mahomes? That's the first part. And then L'Jarius Sneed off to Tennessee. Don't have that lockdown man coverage corner in the secondary. They have depth there, Kansas City. But that Rashad Bateman, the receiver for the Ravens, does he finally have his breakout season? Does he have more opportunities now against some of the turnover in the Kansas City secondary?
Sua Mata'ia is a great shout as a guy to watch because obviously a rookie this season. I kind of expected all the way along Kansas City to eventually sign some kind of veteran stopgap left tackle, but they seem to be giving Sua Mata'ia the shot to have that job. In preseason, the Chiefs don't play their starters much, so we didn't see much of him. He played 30 snaps, something like that, in the course of preseason. So this is really going to be the first idea we're going to get of where he's at as in terms of the level they're going to need him to be. And as much as they certainly don't, like he's the plan right now, right? He's plan A. I don't know that necessarily is locked in stone. Like if they come out of this game and Sua Mata'ia has just had his ass handed to him for the entire duration by the Baltimore Ravens, Kansas City might be on the phone to a veteran offensive tackle immediately and being like, hey, you fancy winning a ring this year? Because we need somebody.
Come on, let's go.
Alternatively, he might be fine, right? Yeah. And it's been a really good pick along
Camp
the lines.
reports have been good,
right?
That he's a good fit for their run game, that he's been okay in pass protection. On the other side, the Ravens also, a lot of turnover on the offensive line. Roger Rosengarten, their second-round tackle, probably getting the start at right tackle, which is going to lead to my prediction as we get into picking the games. I'll go first while I'm talking about it. I'm taking the Chiefs, and I'm predicting the patented Chris Jones game-clinching, sack, pressure, hitting the QB's arm, whatever it might be, against rookie right tackle Roger Rosengarten. You move Chris Jones out, always wins against the right tackle. So I'm going to say it's Chiefs by 3. I'm going to take the Chiefs to cover the 3 here on opening night.
Well, I'm starting the season the way I usually continue it by hating my pick immediately. I'm going with the Ravens. They're a 3-point underdog. I'm saying they're covering even if they're not winning, and I hate it. I hate every part of it.
That's good. Just hate pick.
Hate it.
Hate pick your picks. And you guys can love pick your picks in the Discord. We love all your picks.
Okay.
Harry is going with the Chiefs.
So
we have to. I have Harry's picks here in the spreadsheet. We got to get them into the Discord.
Yeah, into the Sleeper app.
Sleeper app through the Discord.
Correct.
Link. Yeah, we got that. Chiefs for the Palazzolos, and Ravens for you.
Uh-huh.
All right. We have a Friday game, Sam.
We do.
My dream of Island game weekend is getting
Brazil.
Closer and closer. The Brazil game, yeah. Green Bay Packers at the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles by 2.5 here. So it's going to be Friday night. I believe this is on Peacock. Is this Peacock exclusive on Friday night, or am I making that up?
I don't know.
I try to tell people where they watch the game.
Yeah, I mean they'll find it. It's not like the NFL is hard to find.
It's not hard to find. All Island games.
Yeah.
I love this matchup. Somebody was doing Radio Hit earlier today, and somebody said, hey, power rank the NFC for me. And off the top of my head, I think I put the Eagles 3 and the Packers 4. Okay. So in my very unofficial NFC power rankings, it's a 3 versus 4 matchup here, Packers and Eagles.
Well, that really sells it.
It means it's a good one.
Yeah, interesting foreign game. I mean, the NFL is pushing these, right? They're moving further and further afield. We've had the London games for years. Germany is now a regular staple. Mexico City has had games. This is now Brazil, and then Ireland is on the horizon. At some point we got to go to that game, whatever it is. Go over to Dublin.
I was just thinking that when they said that we'd be going to Ireland, you're gonna drag me over there, aren't you?
For that game, yeah.
Yeah. How tall are the doorways in Ireland?
Oh no, they're fine. Doorways are good. Yeah. Everything else is small.
Aren't like all the European cities built for 5'10" people?
No, the doorways are good. You're fine for doorways. Ireland, Dublin in particular.
The food?
Yeah, the food's good. Dublin in particular is famed for giant, big Victorian doorways. You're fine.
We have a big audience in the British Isles generally, including Ireland, and so maybe that we do like a show over there or something.
Yeah, like McAfee.
Like McAfee.
Following McAfee's footsteps.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll draw a similar audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have millions and millions of listeners.
We get your man Michael McQuaid on the case. He'll pack a venue for us.
Perfect.
Yeah,
let's do it. So, what are you looking for in this football game here?
So I think one thing is, do we see signs of the upgrade that exists on paper for Philadelphia in terms of coaching? Right. I think the majority of what unspooled for them late in the year last season was coaching related, and I think they knew that as well, which is why those were the levers that Nick Sirianni was trying to pull, shifting who was doing what from a coaching standpoint late in the year, but also why they went and upgraded. And they got in Vic Fangio on defense. They brought in Kellen Moore on offense. Do we see obvious signs that has already had an impact, right, in this game? Can we see, in particular on offense, have they got answers when teams send the blitz at them, which they didn't really last season?
That's a huge question for me.
Yes. Right. Defensively, do we see evidence that this defense is already there and we're watching a Vic Fangio defense cook? A couple of other things. I think a lot of questions for Philadelphia. Does the push play still function without Jason Kelce? Man's retired, right? We got a whole new center now. Was he integral to everything, or does it work because it works?
Is Jalen Hurts a system tush pusher? That's a fair question. Is Jason Kelce the actual key? Because other teams don't tush push the same way the Eagles do,
right.
and everybody's like, oh, it's because Jalen Hurts squats 1,000 pounds. That's why. Did you forget about Jason Kelce as a low center of gravity center?
Right. I mean,
we'll keep an eye on it.
They've got multiple interior guys have shifted now, so it is fundamentally shifting what they've been doing on that play. It's going to be a new thing, and then. Generally, I'm fascinated by what the Green Bay Packers are going to be this year. We just don't tend to see teams approach roster construction in this way of let's assemble an entire roster full of young people. Forget age, forget experience, forget veteran savvy. Don't need it. We're going to get a whole bunch of young players and consistently rely on that youth and potential. And, I mean, as long as, if Jordan Love picks up where he left off, that's obviously the most important player pointed in the right direction. But if this group does get better together collectively, the Super Bowl push that a lot of people are giving them is legit, is justified. I mean, they were in that kind of world late last season despite a horrendous start to the year. So if that's real, this is a contending team immediately. But we know that there's plenty of chance that it all sort of doesn't take a step forward.
When you think about the ebbs and flows of the season, if we played Eagles-Packers in week 17 last year, right, or even in the playoffs in the divisional round,
Packers would have won by 40.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. These teams were going in completely different directions. And one of my biggest storylines to watch this year is the Eagles' collapse last year. How much of that is a culture in the building, led by the head coach Nick Sirianni type of thing? How much of it is look, we got the new coordinators, we're okay, we're going to be fine. Because on paper, the Eagles look outstanding. Again, Howie Roseman, probably the best in the business as far as pure general manager and team builder goes. They've done it again. They're loaded in all the right areas. And now I want to see how that all fits together. And then Green Bay, you and I have said a lot, right? 7, 8, 9 week stretches are fun for the story. They're fun for Jordan Love's trajectory. It all matches up that they've arrived. They're there. But that's not the NFL is not just that simple. It could be for the Packers, because if Jordan Love looks like a superstar right from the get-go, all of a sudden it's all right, now the Packers are 1 or 2 in the NFC power rankings. Right, they've taken this step as the youngest team in the NFL to be right there with the Niners and with the Lions. So I think you learn a lot here in week 1. Just from a new personnel standpoint, the same thing I mentioned about Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry being in the backfield together. Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley in the backfield together. We have some young football listeners and everything. The advantage of having a running quarterback, it changes the arithmetic at the line of scrimmage. Saquon Barkley had that a little bit with Daniel Jones, but this should be the best situation Saquon Barkley's run behind from an offensive line and scheme perspective in his career. And Saquon's the type of guy where if you give him a little bit of room, it's not great. If you give him a gap, he's the guy that could take it to the house as well as anybody. So I think Saquon is going to be a key here as well. Against a new Green Bay defense, too, that had tons of issues, late in games, run fits. Jeff Hafley comes in from Boston College running their defense. They like to run an 8-man front. So we're going to learn a lot about the Eagles' run game, and can the Packers stop the run, be a little bit more consistent on defense this year.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what that Green Bay defense looks like schematically. I mean, that feels like another version where a little bit like the Vikings when they shifted away from Ed Donatel, a couple of years ago, simply changing scheme almost anything. Doesn't really matter. I mean, the new guy will have his own version, and that has its own ceiling, but just simply changing coach on defense, I think, could propel this defense forward in a significant way, and then we get to see what Hafley can bring to the table as well.
All right, man. You want to get to the one matchup to watch? I just want to say Rashawn Gary. He'll move around both sides of the line of scrimmage, presumably. New system. Rashawn Gary against both Eagles tackles. Jordan Mailata at left tackle, Lane Johnson at right tackle. One of the matchups to watch for me, getting pressure on Hurts.
Yep.
You want to make a pick?
I do. I'm going with Green Bay. They are 2.5-point underdogs. It's not like it's a home game for Philly. It's in Brazil. And so I think Green Bay might be the better team anyway. And I like that.
Yeah, it's a tough one, man. It's like I said, there's a lot of
Now, before you make your pick, can I give you one further piece of information that might be relevant? Green Bay's flight pathway to Brazil took them through the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, they made it through.
Yes.
Okay, so we know they're going to show up at least.
Well, we don't. I mean, other things could happen, but yes, they've made it to Brazil.
That doesn't change my.
Okay.
Change my pick. It's good to know, though. You don't seem to care.
No.
You're like, no, that's fine. Mm-hmm. You're almost like, hey, they survived it.
They've been, yeah.
They're battle tested.
Right.
They're battle tested on the way to Brazil.
Exactly.
There's questions about the field conditions down there, and I know that's happened in a few different areas. That I don't like that.
You don't like
people
that?
are going to be slipping all over the place. They're going to score 60 points.
Well, it's going to be grass, so yeah. That's what happens. Anytime there's a grass field, a lot of slipping.
A lot of slipping, so that will negate the pass rush that probably leans in Green Bay's factor. Now I'm talking myself in here. I'm taking the Eagles, though. I'm buying in, until proven otherwise, I'm buying into the Eagles being the 2022 version of the Eagles, the Super Bowl caliber Eagles. So I'll take Philly to cover the 2.5. Harry's going to go with the Packers.
There you go.
The only real commentary I got from Harry is Titans and Bears in a few picks. The only commentary. Right now, all I have is picks. So you and Harry are going with the Packers. I'll take the Eagles.
Let's go.
You got no more use for this game?
No.
Oh, it's good to be back. It's good to be back. All right. That's more of a Monday thing. That's more of a Monday, right? We finished talking about the game. We're on. All right, let's go Pittsburgh Steelers at the Atlanta Falcons. We're on to Sunday, the 1 o'clock game. I'm going to be locked in to this one. Falcons by 3.5. Old friend at PFF, Zach Robinson, calling plays for the first time for the Atlanta Falcons. We've got an Arthur Smith revenge game.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. Remember, like at the NFL, I swear, the old couple that makes let's pretend that they still make the schedule. They love week 1 revenge games.
The old couple?
That's the baseball people. The AI system loves week 1.
Burt Bell when he used to do the whole thing.
That's who it was, Burt, yeah.
His dining room table.
Yeah. They love week 1 revenge games. The schedule makers, we'll say.
Yeah.
Just like Russ going back to Seattle in week 1 a couple years ago. You got Arthur Smith back in Atlanta in week 1.
Yeah. That's going to be interesting. Was preseason actually directionally indicative of what this Steelers offense is going to be? At which point, that's not good. Or is Russ within this Arthur Smith offense actually going to function at a higher level than we saw? Because he kind of needs to, because that did not look great. They're still without probably Roman Wilson, their rookie wide receiver, whom they may rely on a reasonable amount, because outside of him, it's basically George Pickens. Not much else. So, yeah, that is going to be interesting. Really, I'm fascinated the most, though, by Kirk Cousins at 35 coming off an Achilles. And this is going to be the same with Aaron Rodgers later on. That's not normal, right? Like, Achilles used to be basically a death knell for a guy's career. Now, less so maybe at positions like quarterback, where you're not necessarily relying on explosive movement off your off the leg. You are to throw, but it's not it's not the same as a pass rusher or a running back that really needs to be able to explode off that leg to just function at this level. But now we're seeing, I don't want to say that they've become routine, but this sort of advance in surgical techniques with these sort of ladder surgeries or whatever they're called, whether it's Cam Akers popping his Achilles every year and just sewing it back up and getting back out there next season, or whether it's Kirk Cousins coming off his Achilles, Aaron Rodgers trying to come back within the season, these don't appear to be the kind of injuries that they used to be. And Kirk Cousins, whatever you say about him and his ceiling and his level, that man takes care of himself. That man tries to squeeze every last ounce out of the talent that he does have. He is the type of player that I think will outlast the general expectation of age for that position. And he was doing dance numbers at NFL Honors in, February off the back of that Achilles, like 100 days later. So does he just step right in and cook within the Zach Robinson offense, which is effectively the same offense he's been running under Kevin O'Connell for a few years in Minnesota, where he's been playing his best football? Or, do we see signs that the guy's 35, not particularly robust physically, and now has a bum leg?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the same thing with Rodgers. I think it's more about like sudden movement and quickness. Is that there? Kirk never really had that generally,
except for that one play where he ran around Zach Allen.
Yes, that one play. It'll be more of a story, I think, for Aaron Rodgers. I want to see this Atlanta offense because it is, I don't want to say completely night and day from Arthur Smith, but Arthur was throwing 15 tight ends out there and fullbacks and a lot of heavier type of personnel. Zach and the Falcons were running a lot of 11, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end type of personnel. Kyle Pitts, who everyone was hoping for, okay, now he'll get targeted, it'll be a breakout season. He's dealing with a hamstring injury. I don't know if he's even going to play or
he's dismissed it. Did you see? I don't know if it was Twitter or Instagram, but he's been like, I miss a few snaps in a regular practice and people losing their minds. You'll see Sunday or Saturday, whenever this game is.
They're on Sunday, yeah. They're on Sunday. All right, so he'll be fine.
So Pitts is saying, don't get out of control now.
But we're looking at more 11 personnel. I'm expecting a big year from Drake London on the outside. I think he's going to get a lot of targets. I think Bijan is going to be more bell cow-ish, right? I think you're going to see your 20-plus carries for Bijan, his 5 or 6 targets out of the backfield. That's what everybody's hoping for. My question is going to be on the offensive line for Atlanta against a pretty good Pittsburgh defensive front. Like Caleb McGarry at right tackle, he's played pretty well the last couple of years, but they're pretty well protected in Arthur Smith's system. If he's got to be one-on-one with TJ Watt on the outside, I think Watt has a chance to win some of those reps and maybe make an impact on Kirk Cousins. Does the Atlanta offensive line, from PFF grading standpoint, has been excellent the last couple of years, but I think they've had some schematic advantages to grade well under Arthur Smith. So I want to see if they hold up. I'm expecting big games, though, from Drake London. I'm expecting something from Kyle Pitts where people are going to be excited. And I think a lot from Bijan coming out of the backfield.
Yeah.
The other side, what you mentioned about, it's interesting, if we mentioned weaknesses on both teams, cornerback 2 for Atlanta and wide receiver 2 for Pittsburgh on that side of the ball. Van Jefferson.
So it offsets.
Yeah. This is, we call it the pillow fight you talk about, right?
Yeah. The very movable object meets the extremely resistible force.
So you have a great matchup on one side, George Pickens for Pittsburgh against A.J. Terrell. When they're matched up, is it Mike Hughes probably getting the start here opposite A.J. Terrell for Atlanta and going up against Van Jefferson? So 2, I would say, question mark positions for both teams. And they don't always match up against each other, but I think schematically you're going to want to get a favorable matchup, for Pickens, on the other side.
Right, if you can. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a big part of that Steelers offense, theoretically, is can you maneuver George Pickens into a non-A.J. Terrell matchup during the game?
And then you get the Russ factor, man. What are you going to get from Russ? He hasn't been good since 2020. He hasn't been really good since 2020.
No,
in the first half of 2020,
he was pretty good last year.
He was all right. Again, the stats ended up fine. The PFF grade was better, but there's still so many just plays left on the table, and why are you leaving clean pockets? And so the same thing I want to keep an eye on about Rodgers. When Aaron Rodgers comes back, he'll play within structure fine, but will he have that quick twitch, the ability to break the pocket like he used to? Because Russ is a good example of a guy who doesn't. And it wasn't an Achilles injury. He just stopped having that.
Right.
Every now and again it shows up, but certainly not to the degree that it was there in Seattle. So Russ, at this point in his career, I think has to win from the pocket more often. Can Arthur Smith dial up some of those open throws for him?
Yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson looks like a guy who has reached that age where quarterbacks decline. And he has, right? He's 35 years old. That used to be the age where quarterbacks were like, all right, that's it. You're on the way out now. Sad, but that's the reality of the world. Ironically, he's kind of done the same things as Kirk Cousins in terms of that man was always apparently spending like $1 million a year or something on himself, like his body, to ensure that this never happened. And actually, he became one of the clearest examples in recent years of just hitting an age where it looks like he can't do what he used to do. I don't know if that was all for show, or if he's actually, the man needs to be getting some refunds out of some people, because he does look like he's physically just not the same player. And I do think it's not all that. I mean, I think the game has changed as well, schematically, away from the way he used to make plays, and that's not great. Like, the game is essentially not to combat him specifically, but the game has simply adapted in a way that has taken away what he used to do best more often, and that means you're not getting as good a version of Russell Wilson as you used to.
Maybe Russ should be going to my old trainer, John Paloff. Shout out to John.
Yeah,
because he's got my friend Rich Hill came back to the Red Sox recently, 44 years old, still pitching. Rich's career should have ended about 15 years ago.
I mean,
but John worked him back into shape. John got me jacked, man.
You're only 42, and you can't.
I'm not the best representative for John. I chose to. I retired on purpose. I opted out, but I was still at my peak at 30 when I retired.
Well, I'm just saying, I saw an image. There was a tweet yesterday that some guy had thrown a 106-mile-an-hour fastball. You were 42, and you were throwing 75.
Yeah.
It's the loudest I've heard Tyler laugh in a long time.
It's good to get Tyler laughing in the booth here. I hope Ben and Davis are laughing too. Yeah.
I'm just saying
I haven't been training.
You're 2 years younger than this guy, and you can't throw with heat at all.
I mean, Rich probably throws about 75 too, but he's still going. He's anyway. Shout out to John Paloff, Mike Boyle they got me up to 94. That's the miracle.
Yeah.
I throw 75. They got me up to 94. Right? So maybe Russ should be working with John and with Boyle. We got a go Blue Crabs shout out as well.
There you go.
Southern Maryland. That was my last team. All right, let's make a pick. It's going to be a 3-hour show.
Yeah, well, that's what we do here. Atlanta.
Yeah, I got to go Atlanta. Got to go Atlanta.
3.5-point favorites, but I'm buying it.
Don't let us down, Zach.
No.
As I tell my kids.
Don't let me down.
Don't embarrass the family.
Yeah.
Don't embarrass the family. Go get them. Bobby started out slow last year. It's okay. If it happens. Just saying. If it happens.
Yeah. I mean, not that slow.
And they got whooped week 1 against the Ravens.
Like 1 week.
That was slow. Arizona Cardinals at the Buffalo Bills. Oh, boy. We got a travel game. East Coast game. We know where we're going with this one.
That's true.
You got to rethink your pick here, Sam.
Factor that in.
Rethink your pick. Arizona Cardinals at the Buffalo Bills. 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. 6.5 is Buffalo. The line for Buffalo.
It's an early morning for the Birds.
You know what I love about week 1?
What's that?
Because by week 7 or 8, you got like 4 games that are double-digit spreads.
Yeah.
The line makers, they're very cautious early in the season, right? Because some of these games you would say, 5 or 6 weeks from now, when you know what the team is, you'd be like, oh, this is like a 13-point spread. 6.5. This is one of the biggest ones this week. Second biggest of the week. Buffalo favored at home against the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised this line is as big as it is.
You're in optimism territory with the Cardinals.
I think the Arizona Cardinals could surprise people this year. That offense has the ingredients to be very, very good. Buffalo's offense also has the ingredients to be less good than it's been in the past, or at the very minimum, may take some time to figure out exactly what they are and how they're going to deploy everybody and where this offense is going to work through. Absent, Stephon Diggs. But like the Cardinals now, Kyler Murray is capable of amazing play. I mean, we've seen that already in his NFL career. It hasn't lasted. He got injured. There have been various different issues that have held him back from being one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But like the last couple of days, there have been a bunch of these articles out there ranking quarterbacks from whether it's personnel people, whether it's just randos ranking their quarterbacks. Like Kyler Murray is being ranked behind, everyone gets disrespected by lists. Murray is being disrespected by some of these lists. He has got extremely high level play already on his NFL resume, and you just handed the man Marvin Harrison Jr. in the draft. He already had Michael Wilson, who had a really good rookie campaign, now gets to take a step down the depth chart and just be a number 2 guy. Trey McBride was a phenomenal breakout tight end for them. They've got talent in the backfield, which they reinforced with rookie draft selections, Trey Benson coming in. And that offensive line is not terrible. So this is a group on offense, I think, that actually has the recipe to be a very good unit quite quickly. They were doing creative things schematically last year. They were already a difficult out for people when they were terrible, when they didn't have Kyler Murray and Josh Dobbs was the quarterback and they had no talent proven at the kind of caliber of some of these players. I think this team's going to be good. Maybe the defense will stink, but I think the offense is going to be able to really scare people.
I will say Jonathan Gannon had them playing most weeks above expectations. They were probably like the least watchable team, like the least exciting team that you wanted to watch on paper last year. And they, Dobbs kept them in games. The
even
defense kept them
teams.
in games. Yeah, they played tough. My Kyler concern, using PFF grades here, last time we saw him play well was 2021. That was when they made a playoff run. They lost in the playoffs, had an 86.7 passing grade, had all those big-time throws in Cliff Kingsbury's offense. That somehow disappeared in 2022. Then he got hurt. Last year took him a little bit to get going. It was a new offense. He finishes with a 70 grade. So we're 2 years removed from seeing Kyler Murray play his best football. He also should be fully healthy now.
Right.
He should be back and healthy. So he'll be an intriguing piece. I mean, he's a big wild card for where every quarterback is, but a big wild card because we don't know what we're going to get from him necessarily. If he gets back to 2021 form, I'm with you on Arizona being maybe more dangerous than they could be. But Jonathan Gannon, I think, is going to have to work some magic on the defensive side of the ball. On paper, this is one of the worst defenses. From a defensive front perspective, talked about this all offseason. I don't think they have any impact players. Darius Robinson, the first rounder, could be that, but he's banged up right now. Starting corners of Sean Murphy-Bunting, Starling Thomas the fifth, rookie Max Melton in there, Garrett Williams. I don't see those guys. That's another interesting matchup against the Bills, where we want to see what Keon Coleman and all the who's going to step up as at receiver. They have an opportunity against this Cardinals secondary to make some plays.
Yeah, they do. But I think we're going to get to, this is going to be an experimental game for Buffalo, figuring out how that offense is going to go. Is it going to be feeding Keon Coleman as their number 1 guy? Are they going to work through the tight ends? And actually Dalton Kincaid is their number 1 receiver, like Travis Kelce or George Kittle has been at times for San Francisco. Is Kincaid going to be their number 1 guy? Is the whole thing going to operate through the slot? How this game is our first sort of example, I think, real play of how that's going to play out. Are they going to be as good an offense as they've been over the last few years? Is Josh Allen, does he have the entire weight of this thing on his shoulders in a way that they've been kind of trying to ease for the last couple of years? I just think the pressure's on for this Bills offense. I don't think people are taking the Cardinals offense as seriously as they should. And this game kind of feels like a recipe for a much closer game than 6.5 points to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way Arizona's going to play is your Gannon type of defense where you play a little soft in the secondary and make Buffalo be patient and put together those long drives, but they've shown that they can do it, and I think this is where that offense is trying to get to. So I'm expecting James Cook to run the ball extremely well. Allen will make the plays when he needs to with his legs, and all the underneath receivers that you mentioned, Dalton Kincaid, all the slots, Dalton Kincaid, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Coleman will play more outside, but, still maybe better as a slot. I think those guys are going to get their catches. Allen completes a high percentage of his passes. They move the ball, just have to finish in the red zone. I expect Buffalo to do that, and I think they cover the 6.5. Other side of the ball, Buffalo's defense, they've got, their little youth movement there, but I still think they have enough talent there. Their youth movement is really just, they lost
safeties.
The safeties. Poyer, Micah Hyde, Matt Milano to being out for the season or most of the season at linebacker. But they've dealt with that before and still been pretty good. So,
yeah, I expect Buffalo's defense to still be pretty useful. Maybe it takes a step back with the change in safety, but I kind of feel like that scheme is set up to make the safeties look quite good. It sort of reduces the difficulty of the assignment, which is not like.
By the way,
it's not an either or thing, right? Like Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer can be very good players in addition to playing in a scheme that made them look as good as they can look. Those two things can both be true at the same time. It doesn't necessarily, one doesn't have to take away from the other. But the point being, I think that going from those two to Damar Hamlin and Taylor Rapsay, or Damar Hamlin and Cole Bishop, or whatever that's going to play out over the season, I think it's still going to look fine.
Yeah. By the way, Damar Hamlin scheduled to make his first start since the incident on the field.
Yeah.
So another great story. I mean, just him, the guy who should have been comeback player of the year last year.
Yes.
Played football last year, now scheduled to start next to Taylor Rapp.
And also, by the way, I mean, I don't necessarily even want to give
safety
too much oxygen to the kind of conspiracy theories, but there were a ton of people who were like, Hamlin was only on the roster last year because the Bills didn't want the negative PR of cutting him. This guy is a marginal roster type of player. Well, he's now starting because they let two safeties go. So that was never true, right? He was a guy that was playing, he played 800 snaps like the year before. He was a serious part of this team. Okay, he was a backup at the time, but he's backup / starter, not backup / does he make the 53? And now he's going to be starting in this game. So I agree. Incredible story, comeback for him. Incredible moment it'll be for him, and good for him.
I love how our picks match the way we kind of trended in the offseason. You've been higher on Arizona.
Yep.
You're going with the Cardinals to cover.
I am.
And I'll take the Bills.
I have quite a few either upsets or like underdog or road picks this week, I noticed.
Most of the home teams are favored here this week as well. And that's usually where Harry picks, just as a hint. He likes the favorites. Buffalo.
Well, they have a good chance of winning.
They do have a good chance of winning. Buffalo is Harry's pick as well. All right, I want to tell you about our friends over at Fantasy Pros. If you're doing a last-minute draft, you can remember those early days of fantasy football. Fantasy Pros is what you need. It's fun and simple. The old-school drafts, unless you're like me, prep didn't feel like studying for a math test. You fast forward to today, there's millions of experts out there. It's tough to decipher what content will actually help you win your league. Until now, Fantasy Pros has you covered. It's the best site to do all the work for you. They aggregate all the experts, combine it into one set of rankings. Even better, their Draft Wizard has a tool called the Draft Assistant, which connects to your league no matter where you play. Drafts used to be fun, too. You'd get together, have a few drinks, some food, enjoy the smack talk with your friends. We can bring that back because the Draft Assistant tracks how your drafts go, who the best available player is, what trends are developing with your competitors, and a whole lot more. So even if you've already drafted, just keep this in mind for next year as well. Fantasy Pros, great to help with your draft and all of your preparation for your draft. So work less and win more with Fantasy Pros. Again, let Fantasy Pros do the work for you. Go to fantasypros.com/33team-assistant. Sign up to crush your draft and win your league. It's going to be a little last minute, but you can still do it. fantasypros.com/33team-assistant. Go there right now and sign right up.
Yeah, even just poking around their site, it's a really slick interface, really nice, pleasant website. So I think you'll enjoy it.
All right, let's get to Tennessee Titans at the Chicago Bears. Another Sunday 1 o'clock game. Bears favored by 4. I saw some notes on Twitter. The biggest Week 1 spread potentially for a rookie quarterback, or for a rookie quarterback in history.
In his favor,
in his favor, yeah. Right? So there was like Carson Wentz was favored by 3, and his team was favored by 3.5 when he started. I think Mac Jones. Week 1, favored by 3.5. This would be the biggest if it holds at 4.
I haven't got the tweet in front of me, but Sam Hoppen on Twitter plotted essentially team fan base optimism.
I'm sorry.
What's that?
It's up to 4.5 on FanDuel. I apologize.
Okay. He plotted essentially team optimism, fan base optimism versus kind of implied Super Bowl odds, and put them all on the table to sort of say, how our fan base is going versus how good.
I loved that chart.
Yeah. And obviously the Bears fan base could not be more excited, right? Forget they're a lot less likely to win a Super Bowl than their optimism, but the point is they have an answer. They have Caleb Williams. They have their quarterback. And for a team that hasn't had a legitimate high-end quarterback since the game was broadcast on color, Sid Luckman may have been phenomenal. I don't know.
Jim McMahon?
No, stop it. Sid Luckman may have been incredible, but the game was in black and white. The forward pass was barely a thing. Who the hell knows? Caleb Williams may already be the best Bears quarterback right now, right? We were talking about it. His over-under for like passing yardage in a season is kind of where the Bears' all-time single-season mark is. Like, he, at the end of this year, could have already surpassed anything any Chicago Bears quarterback has done over a single season, and that wouldn't even be a crazy outlier season. Like, if he replays, matches what C.J. Stroud was able to do last year, which admittedly is an incredibly high bar, that would clear by a distance anything any Bears quarterback has done. So for the first time ever, Chicago has an insane amount of optimism for a quarterback whose talent draws comps to Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and frankly, we're going to get to see it for the first time. We saw it in preseason. It's like, okay, this is great, but it's only preseason. Now it's real games. Now it's time to get excited for real, albeit with the caveat of sample size, one game, et cetera, et cetera. But now is when we can really get excited.
My favorite part of that chart, optimism versus Super Bowl odds, was the Cowboys fans over in the corner of super pessimistic, but actually have a chance to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Relative to the odds.
Right.
The most pessimistic fan base right now. But yeah, the Bears should be excited. Now my question is, does this show up immediately?
Yeah.
Does this immediately happen? And this is the one where Harry said, the Bears are favored?
Well, he's unfamiliar with Caleb's game.
I don't believe he is. Remember, he did a mock draft. He put him at 1.
That's true.
Now, he also one time did a mock draft and hedged, and I think he had the Bears trade up to 2 and take another quarterback. So maybe there's some doubt in Harry's mind with his evaluation.
Well, that's not the action of a guy that's sold that Caleb Williams is the future.
No, I mean, I can't wait to watch him play. I'm interested to see how much he does play within structure versus outside of structure. And now that we have a real game, is he feeding DJ Moore? How much is the Keenan Allen being chubby question?
Chubby?
What?
He's not. How do you know he's chubby? He's just heavy. He's big boned.
Heavy. I mean, I'm heavy but slender at the same time. So I take that back. I apologize to Keenan, but the reports of him being 230 and losing 2 to 3 steps, what does that show up at all? Does Rome Odunze show up immediately? The Bears' offensive line, I don't think is, I think that's still a potential question there.
It's a question, but I feel like that group is immediately going to look a lot better than it did last year, simply by going from Justin Fields again to anybody but Caleb Williams as well.
And the Bears' defense, which had a lot of hype down the stretch, I think they're better. They're certainly better than they were at the beginning of last year. Do they have enough juice off the edge to create pressure? And then the Titans, man, their new look defense. Are they going to play? They traded for L'Jarius Sneed. They have massive turnover on that side of the ball. We didn't get to talk about Ernest Jones coming in to play linebacker, and that was a surprising move for me, for the Rams. He's been a really dependable player, and the Titans have all these veterans. They're one of the biggest wild cards this offseason because if all the defensive veterans in particular come good, they're a really good team. And if they play a ton of man coverage with L'Jarius, do we see Caleb Williams taken off 8 or 10 times because they're playing man? It's just one of those X's and O's games I'll be watching.
The Titans and Washington feel similar to me in terms of they each just had so much turnover. Like, there's so much different on both those teams that they each feel like they have an incredibly wide range of outcomes where it might all look like just a whole mismatch of new people thrown into the same thing, and it's going to take some time. Or it could immediately turn them into a completely different team with very different outlook and prospects that they had a year ago. Like, there are people, I think the Washington dark horse optimism crowd is getting larger as we get closer to the season, but I kind of feel like the same thing is true for Tennessee, where they could actually be surprisingly very good because, Will Levis did flash last year in a situation that shouldn't have been. It wasn't conducive to him looking good. Okay, it was very much stop-start, and it was 4 touchdowns in his debut and then 4 the rest of the way, and it was the occasional sort of flash play. But that was the worst offensive line in the game by a distance for the second straight year. Now it's been overhauled, and it should be significantly better. And that's before you get to the impact that the new offensive line coach can have on the group, the personnel that was already there. They have so much new personnel. I'm excited for Tennessee. I think that they could look a lot better than people are giving them credit for. And really, that's it for me in this game is Caleb Williams versus Will Levis. Those are two very interesting, very exciting quarterbacks to watch.
Teron Davenport, Titans reporter, is talking about DeAndre Hopkins, expects DeAndre Hopkins to go. I think other beat reporters around Tennessee are expecting that. He was limited on Wednesday.
Coming back from an injury. Yeah.
Coming off of a knee injury throughout camp. When DeAndre Hopkins is there, and they spent $23 million per year on Calvin Ridley to bring him in. I think Ridley's a 2 and a nice complement to DeAndre Hopkins. If they have both of those guys on the field, Tyler Boyd, they also signed to play in the slot. They have the pieces for Will Levis to have success. I'll be watching that offensive line though. I'll be watching J.C. Latham playing left tackle for the first time. Nicholas Petit-Frere, who's been a below-average right tackle to this point. Does he take a step in year 3? Titans' offensive line, I think, is going to be key. Brian Callahan giving all the right answers when it comes to EPA and how they call plays.
Smart answer.
That was all the nerds were loving his answer yesterday about using EPA as an answer on how they call plays. Because the question was like the age-old, why don't you just call passes all the time, basically? And he's like, yeah, we know EPA is higher, but you still have to run the ball because you're trying to keep the defense off balance, basically. But you just want to make sure you run to the right looks, right? The right call, the right run concept against the right front to maximize your return, try to get 4 basically and stay.
Right.
He said basically stay on schedule without saying it, but
yeah,
that was a good answer. And I think that's positive news, I would say, for Titans fans hearing that.
His point was effectively the real key is you want to avoid negative runs, right?
Yeah.
Negative runs are the thing that really drives the poor results relative to the pass game that the run game has in terms of EPA, in terms of all that kind of thing, it's a similar conclusion, albeit I think through different means. Remember the way Mike Leach, he just didn't call run plays. He's like, we'll run, but only as an audible into a favorable look, right? We will essentially call a pass play every time, and then when we see a box that is so favorable we can't pass that up, we'll take 7 yards in the run game and just we'll audible and run up the middle. That's kind of what Callahan was getting to, which is we want to call run plays against favorable looks, and that's how the run game will have its the maximum amount of success. And then you get into the stuff, we talked to our friend Bobby Slowick about stuff like this. There is value in those run plays simply by not being a pass play, right? Giving the quarterback a mental break, there are those types of things which don't necessarily get factored in, but I think are still pretty important elements of the whole thing. Overall, though, big picture, it was one of the most sort of insightful, I think, responses that any head coach has made relative to the term EPA. Remember, we're a couple of years removed from Byron Leftwich, not even knowing what the term is.
What is that?
Right.
I don't use such stats.
Exactly. Relative to a head coach who might not be, in the spreadsheets with the nerds, but understands it well enough to not just articulate what he feels about it, but kind of point out the flaw in the question, those kinds of things.
In the Titans, part of the reason, just to wrap this up, part of the reason why Mike Vrabel is out there is from the top. I got it.
Okay.
From the top, they wanted to add, they wanted to be more analytically sound. They brought Sarah Bailey over from the Rams to Tennessee to run their analytics department. It's the first time I think they've really started to build out that area. So you're going to probably see more of that stuff from the Titans. I don't know how good they're going to be this year just because so much turnover, but I'm banking on that defense surprising. And so 4.5, man. Where are you going with this one?
I am going with the Bears. I'm buying into that. One last, the chat, which I believe Walt started, they talked about, I'm excited to see Tavondre Sweat.
Tavondre, yes.
How can 360 plus pounds play at a high level, at an NFL level, for a serious number of snaps?
I think he's got a chance with Coleman Shelton starting at center for the Bears. He has a chance to push the pocket there. I want to see if Jeffrey Simmons really gets freed up. Jeffrey Simmons is a guy that should be producing like one of the top defensive tackles in the NFL and only does it periodically. does Sweat free him up, even immediately, where Simmons can look like the superstar that he's capable of being. I think I'm kind of optimistic about the Titans. I'm taking the Titans to cover this. I'm optimistic about Caleb Williams, and I think he's going to be excellent. But I'll take the Titans to cover the 4.5. Harry's also taking the Titans because, like I said, he was shocked that the Bears were favored by this much.
Right. Because, of course, who knows about Caleb Williams?
Who knows? So let's go New England Patriots at the Cincinnati Bengals. This is the biggest spread of the week, 8.5. Biggest line right here. This is the type of spread. I'm telling you, if this was 3 weeks from now, this one's 14.
But also there's that.
That's just how I feel.
You don't need to go back that many years before the idea of New England is an 8.5-point underdog to Cincinnati would seem like absolute nut job stuff.
Just to offset that a little bit too, New England, of course, had the number 3 overall pick last year. The Eagles were coming off a Super Bowl last year. I don't remember what the line was in week 1, but the Patriots were within a touchdown, right? So as much as I'm flabbergasted, I'm going to take Cincinnati because I think they're a much better team.
Yeah.
Anything can happen in a one-game setting. It's week 1. Sure. And even as recent as week 1 last year, where New England was not very good and the Eagles were good early in the season, it was like a 6-point game or whatever it was. The other thing working against the Bengals right now is they're terrible at the beginning of the season, historically. Yeah. There were reasons for it last year with Burrow's injury, but they were terrible even in their Super Bowl seasons. 21, 22, and 23. Are they 0-6? They might be 0-6.
They have been, consistently slow starters. But the other thing is, there were reasons for it last year. Joe Burrow was only just coming back, but Jamar Chase hasn't been there for the entire time here. He's been in the midst of these contract disputes. Now he was practicing for the first time. It looks like they're going to get something done, or at least they're called his bluff to the point where he's going to be playing. So, but my point being, Jamar Chase has not been out there with Joe Burrow for the entirety of training camp, preseason, et cetera. So there's another reason that it might not look amazing right away. It might take a little bit of time just for them to get back on the same page. The other thing, though, is it just shows. So that chart I referenced earlier of fan optimism versus chances of winning a Super Bowl, it sort of speaks to how bad things are in New England right now, that they have their quarterback. They got Drake May. That's a guy that typically would lead you to being really excited. I didn't see where Washington was, but Chicago with Caleb Williams right at the sharp end in terms of fan optimism. I assume Washington is pretty high in that direction as well. The third guy, Drake May, the Patriots are still amongst the most miserable, because pessimistic fan bases ever.
Because he's not starting. If he was starting, that optimism immediately moves to the middle of the pack.
But also because they recognize that the situation is still awful around him. Like, they have their guy, and they still have zero optimism for this season, because the question is not, can Drake May lead us to the promised land? The question is, how bad can this get with what is around this guy right now?
Yeah, I don't have faith in this Patriots offense doing much. The defense I don't know if they'll be as good as last year. They kept them in a lot of games, a lot of low-scoring games. I think they have the potential to do that again, just to play good, sound, fundamentally sound football. But on the offense, the offensive line looked like a big issue on paper this offseason. It has looked like a big issue on the football field during the preseason. Chukes Okorafor, who was kind of a mediocre right tackle for the Steelers, he might get the shot at left tackle. It's either him or Vidarian Lowe. I don't have faith in either of those guys. Nope. Trey Hendrickson's going to line up at right end pretty much the majority of the time. I think Trey Hendrickson has a chance to have like an 8 pressure game, one of those monster games, unless they're sliding protection his way. I think the O-line's going to have issues. Jacoby Brissett and the playmakers don't have the ability to overcome. I mean, even if the Patriots defense plays well, this could be like 17-3, at worst. But I think the Bengals are going to be explosive again, and I think they're going to be fine. So keep an eye on if the Brian Callahan loss does mean something for Cincinnati. Dan Pitcher takes over as offensive coordinator, but it's him and Zach Taylor working together there. But I'm really optimistic about the Bengals this year, and going to carry that over into my pick here for week 1.
Yeah, it's very difficult to find any reasons for a lot of optimism in New England, other than the fact that they have a lot of young players, but that's also part of the reason for concern. So generally not great.
For the record, I want to stick with, I don't care that Drake May is not starting. I know fans always want to see the starter. Fans were dying to see Justin Fields rather than Andy Dalton. I will stay consistent with when the kid's ready, you put him out there. And it is fair, I think, for the Patriots to have caution given their situation. And hope that there's some sort of offensive line gelling or, I don't know, just improvement by week 7 or 8, and then maybe you could see Drake May.
I mean, this is one where I think that, generally speaking, the barometer should be, is the quarterback ready to play? I think the caveat to that is also, will the situation get him killed? And this is one of those where I think the situation is bad enough that I'm not sure I want to play him even if he's ready.
Yeah. So where are you going? 8.5. It was 7.5 just a day ago. So money's moving in Cincinnati's favor.
Because I think, I'm with the Bengals. I don't really see. I don't know that the Patriots can keep this within double digits.
I could be way off here. It just feels like one of those games that's like easy double-digit spread 2 or 3 weeks from now once we know a little bit more about the teams. I'm taking the Bengals. Harry's taking the Patriots.
Oh.
He is not. He said there's no way the Bengals are winning.
And this is somebody that didn't grow up with the Patriots dynasty, front and center. He's not steeped in 20 years of winning.
Nope. That's just what he's feeling. He thinks it's too much.
Okay.
For the biggest line of the week. All right, let's go Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. I think it's the Colts are favored. Texans are favored by 2.5 here in this one on the road against Indy.
Yeah, and this one feels to me a little bit like kind of upset watch for week 1. Week 1 always has some weird results, and everyone's feeling the Texans right now. Everyone thinks Houston's going to win the Super Bowl, but actually Anthony Richardson, the Colts, they could spring an upset against that. A big thing I think is going to be, can the Texans rather pick up where they left off? Are they actually legitimate contenders? Are they going to get better from last year where they surprised people? Or is all of that getting a little too carried away and this team is good, not great, and that puts them kind of at a similar level to Indianapolis, who, remember, were a fringe playoff team a year ago without their quarterback?
Yeah, I can't wait to watch this game. I think the couple things that I'm keeping an eye on here. Remember, historically, you've got Gus Bradley as defensive coordinator for the Colts. Historically, the Shanahan schemes and derivatives do really well against the old Seattle cover 3.
Yep.
C.J. Stroud had a lot of success against that scheme last year, had over 850 yards, I think it was. That sounds wrong. But he had a lot of yards. And 4 touchdowns, no picks against Indy last year. So at first I saw your note in the doc, upset watch, and I was going to lean home underdogs, Indianapolis. I think I'm going back the other way, though, with Houston. I'm looking at C.J. Stroud versus Anthony Richardson. I trust Stroud, his consistency a little bit more. I don't know how all those pieces are going to fit in week 1, how they're going to get the ball to all the, to Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, to Tank Dell, running the ball with Joe Mixon. But I think they're going to have success against this Colts defense.
648 yards.
That was the number I was
4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
I don't know why the 800 was in my head, but 648 across 2 games.
And a yards per attempt figure that's got to be in the
over 9
somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. I was looking that up yesterday, and I'm like, that confirmed what I was thinking. That was my theory going in. Yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure Stroud, and I'm pretty sure these offenses.
Bobby knows where the cover 3 bodies are buried.
Yes.
He knows
that whole system. That was built to dominate against cover 3.
Really
now they're still dominating in a world that's playing a lot more cover 2, cover 4.
It also attacks other schemes, but it is unusually adept at carving that Seattle cover 3 type of derivative system.
And that's what Gus, it's still what he likes to run. And again, I have the same questions as last year. I don't know if I trust the Colts corners in that system. I think they weren't bad defensively last year. They were fine. But I just think it's a bad matchup with Houston. I'm also going to lean into my offseason take that Houston's defense is going to start becoming really good. And I watched Richardson in camp against the Bengals. He was up and down there, kind of in the game, some similarities. You go back to last year, the few games that you saw, there was a lot of positives for Anthony Richardson, but there was a couple, turnover-worthy plays in there. I think you're looking at a late, maybe poor decision thrown to Derek Stingley or something like that that's going to, affect maybe a Colts comeback is my prediction. So I'll take the take the Texans to cover the 2.5 here.
I'm also taking the Texans to cover it, despite potentially watching for an upset from the Colts.
By the way, the overall trench battle, Houston's defensive line with Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, going up against the Colts tackles, the Colts offensive line as a whole, which is one of the best. Yeah, my friends. I was hanging out with Bernard Ryman and Blake Freeland over at practice, just talking ball.
Yeah.
Talking ball, hanging out, asking them about Laiatu Latu.
Just you and the big fellas.
Yeah, we're just talking. Good catching up with those guys. I think they're gonna have their hands full against the Texans. That's gonna be a really good matchup. Freeland's more the swing tackle, but it's gonna be a good matchup to watch.
Excited to see a couple of the rookies as well. The Colts have been talking up A.D. Mitchell a lot since they got him in the building, and obviously Latu, they've been giddy with what he can do.
Mitchell's going to steal the slot snaps from Josh Downs,
right? Who's
been banged up.
We have been incredibly bullish on what Latu can do right off the bat. Can he back up, repeat essentially what Will Anderson did a year ago? So in particular, a couple of the Colts rookies I think will be very exciting to watch first time out.
There was a world where we used to spend 2 hours on the preview shows. Now those are bye weeks and everything. It's going to be a full 3-hour show, and we just got to embrace it. We're almost halfway through. We just got to go. We just got to do it. So I'm taking Houston. You're taking Houston. Harry is also taking Houston to cover the 2.5. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Miami Dolphins. 1:00 Sunday. Dolphins favored by 3.5 here. This is one of the matchups of the week here, Sam. A lot of a couple AFC teams with some optimism, with new $50 million plus QBs.
Yeah.
And again, with expectations that you're going to have those $50 million QBs leading you to the playoffs and beyond, hoping to get up to that Chiefs, Ravens, Bills type of level.
Yeah, so the kind of preseason narrative for me on the Dolphins was all focused on what they look like in December. Okay, we know what this does in September and early in the season, but the real crux for Miami has been they've fallen apart late in the year for a couple of seasons. Now, though, we're week one. We get to say, okay, but what has Mike McDaniel cooked up over the offseason? Because this guy has been genuinely at the cutting edge of not just the NFL, but of that Kyle Shanahan offense, like the best offense, and coming up with his own, like he's been the pioneer over the last couple of years. He's been coming up with the most advancing elements of scheme wrinkles to add to this offense. So you've already got the best scheme, and he's been the guy pushing it forward the last couple of years. And for a couple of years, that offense has been absolutely motoring earlier in the season, only to then, run out of steam or the wheels fall off or however you want to characterize it late in the season. But now we just get to go, okay, what has he done this year, right? Last year, they broke out all the cheat motion stuff, which broke the NFL for a period. The Dolphins were on record-setting pace early in the year. So what's this year's version? Has he come up with something completely different? Where's the extra wrinkle that McDaniel is bringing to the table? And does this completely blow Jacksonville out of the water when they see it for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, there's elements of I liked Miami early in the season, liked them at home. I know they're playing another Florida team. They don't have necessarily that
advantage. Yeah.
They don't have the Buffaloes coming down and in the sun advantage necessarily, but I do like Miami early in the season because I am kind of banking on.
But they do
some new wrinkles.
They do have. Remember, they have the. They have the stadium essentially rigged so that they get the shade, and whoever the visiting team is gets the sun. So yeah, that might be a bigger team or bigger problem if you're coming from somewhere that is not used to Florida heat. It's still a problem if you're the team in the sun and the other team has shade. So even if Jacksonville is used to Florida heat, they're still getting baked in a way Miami isn't.
It was also interesting hearing Mike McDaniel this offseason saying, I think he's got the most confidence in his offensive line since they've started here. I don't think that's a knock on anybody necessarily, but they've got a little bit more continuity and, presumably Teron Armstead out there and Aaron Brewer comes in, the modern marvel. You need a modern marvel.
The modern
marvel. Yeah, he's 270-pound center. It's unbelievable. He's given up 60 pounds to Creed Humphrey playing the same position, right? Every year I have to explain this. He is a service academy-sized center.
Yeah.
Right? He's an Army, Navy type of center out there and holding his own.
Okay. It's great that Mike McDaniel feels that way about his offensive line. Do you believe that based off what that line looks like on paper?
Robert Hunt's gone.
Yep.
I don't
Connor
necessarily.
Williams is gone.
Connor Williams was gone. Now, they had snapping issues last year.
And he torn his ACL. So
and he got hurt. But, like, I thought it was probably better last year on paper.
Yeah.
They might have some more depth, though. Like, Patrick Paul's in there as the backup, as developmental tackle. They might have more depth.
Yeah.
Or future depth. But I don't necessarily know that it's better.
I'm just looking at that group, and I'm like, it still feels that I'm concerned by all of the Shanahan scheme offensive lines, but this is the one that looks the worst.
And on the other side, you have Ryan Nielsen comes in running the Jags defense, and they've got Josh Hines-Allen rushing the passer, Trayvon Walker, Eric Armstead. Is this a year for Trayvon? I mean, Trayvon looked in limited time in the preseason, looked as explosive and as good as he ever has. They have a chance to, they're going to have more of like a pure four-man rush, pure four-man line in that system now.
I mean,
so I think they have a chance to do some damage. I'll be watching that matchup.
Yeah,
though.
Armstead versus Hines-Allen, I think, is a good back and forth. But like that offensive line doesn't have anybody that can block Eric Armstead.
No, I agree. But the thing that makes this work, and the reason why I think you justify the $50+ million for Tua, is we know that his quick release protects the offensive line. It's a great fit for that system. They get guys open quickly. That anticipation. That's part of the reason why they've been able to offset the offensive line these last couple of years. When the previous regime was not really able to do that. Like Tua could do it to a point,
right?
But they were kind of afraid to throw the ball down the field. And now Mike McDaniel has not been. So, look, I think Miami still – I think you get another high-scoring game. Week 1 last year, Miami was like 36-34 against the Chargers. I think we could see something like that here in Week 1. And I think with Trevor Lawrence, I'm always wondering is there that elite breakout that's there? At the second half of 2022, we started to see that. Last year it was a little bit more inconsistent. Then he was injured with like 5 different injuries in the second half of the season. So you throw that out, right, Sam? We throw the injuries out.
Throw it out.
Throw it all out. Throw out Baker Mayfield's entire 2021 season or whatever it was. Throw it out.
None of it counts.
So is Lawrence ready to take that next step here? I want to see what that offense looks like.
Yeah.
Who are the Jags feeding, and does Brian Thomas Jr. become an immediate, and him and Gabe Davis, do they become immediate downfield threats?
Yeah, they're very interesting, Jacksonville, with a lot of new faces, a lot of change. They're just going to be a fascinating team to monitor. But to me, this game is just how good does Miami look right out of the gate? I'm buying into that every year, and I'm taking the Dolphins.
Yeah, I'll be a biased September Miami picker, I think. Especially when they're at home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, give me the Dolphins to cover the 3.5 here in Week 1. You agree. I agree. Harry also agrees.
Ball knower.
So, across the board here. I want to tell you about our friends over at Gametime. So, if you like to go to football games, NFL or college, baseball games like I did, went to the Reds last night, watched them drop 9 runs in the first inning, which was awesome. You got concerts. You can find anything on the Gametime app. You're going to love it. They do a lot of stuff to help synthesize your experience when you're looking for tickets. So you've got you can take the guesswork out by downloading the app. You get the Gametime picks. The curation makes it easy to save more on your sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever it might be. They have the all-in pricing.
Yeah.
So you toggle this feature, shows the total up front. There's no surprise fees at checkout. We've all dealt with that. I like the seat views, so you know exactly where you're sitting. You get the panoramic view from the seat in the app right before you buy. They got a lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference, and you get a Gametime ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So Gametime has everything you need when you're looking to get to a game. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets, game tickets, whatever it might be with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and then use the code CHECKTHEMIC. That's MIC, for $20 off your first purchase. This is great. $20 off. Code is CHECKTHEMIC. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code CHECKTHEMIC. CHECKTHEMIC. You get $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
Yeah. Love the all-in pricing thing because nothing's more annoying than seeing an endless list of extra fees that pop up after you think you're buying something for a given price. And seeing the actual view is awesome as well.
So, it doesn't happen at Gametime. Go check it out right now. We are literally eight games in.
Boom.
Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. NFL debut for Dr. Eric Eager.
For the doctor.
Yeah. This is big.
Is he in the booth? Are we going to get him on camera?
I don't know. There's no way. Imagine Eric's a listener.
We're not allowed to celebrate.
Imagine putting Eric on a headset.
Yeah.
I feel like you'd have to mute him a few times.
You're not allowed. I'd be curious. You're not allowed to celebrate in the press box. It's like it's not done.
You think he's got the Chiefs game on?
But that's not the press box. That's the you celebrate in the team booth.
Yeah.
Eric could be going nuts in his Panthers get up. Like, yeah.
I can't wait. The Panthers and Chiefs play later this year.
Oh wow.
I don't know.
That's going to be conflicting.
Where do his allegiances lie?
Yeah.
But he's probably rooting for the draft pick, and he's like, guys, I got to root for the Chiefs. We need another year of. Oh no, I'm just kidding. I don't want to hurt the integrity of the NFL here.
No,
this is just theorizing.
Protect the shield.
All right, the Saints are favored by 3.5 here. What are you looking for?
Second year of Bryce Young, right? First year was a disaster. This offseason has been all about building around him. They didn't shy away from him. They didn't go, we might have to go in a different direction here. They're like, no, not his fault. Didn't have a chance. Let's go fix everything that was wrong around him. So upgraded offensive line, upgraded wide receiver room, upgraded coaching, bringing in Dave Canales, not just sort of a top of the market hiring, but a guy who's had recent success of effectively rescuing quarterbacks, right? Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, these were both guys that were not starting quarterbacks. They had some pedigree. Baker Mayfield, a former number 1 overall pick himself. Geno Smith, a former top draft pick as well. So these were guys that had theoretical talent, but the league had thrown them on the scrap heap, and Canales brought them back from the brink, and they're both now entrenched high-money starters. So that's the guy you want to connect to Bryce Young, and he's been talking him up, saying it's great seeing his confidence back. So I just want to see, what does this look like? Do we see an immediately noticeable different version of Bryce Young that starts to look like the Alabama Bryce Young, which, let's remember, was a really good player? We're now, I think, reverse engineering what happened last year. Like, Bryce Young was never that great. C.J. Stroud was the guy. Bryce Young was legit in college, and it didn't look that way last season in the NFL. Do we see it now?
For fear of overrating what we saw in the preseason.
Yeah.
But we saw about 10 dropbacks for Bryce.
10, huh?
In the preseason.
More than enough.
Looked more comfortable than last year. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. I always talk about comfort level. I mean, it looked different. I think it looked different in the preseason. So I think he's going to be better. I don't know if it's good enough yet. A lot of reports that Deontay Johnson's going to be fed this year, that he's their guy. So I think they at least have those get open options in Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen. So I'm looking forward to that. The offensive line battle, they spent a lot this offseason on their guards, Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt.
Yep.
They've got creep back toward average potential on that side. I think the Saints defensive line has really underachieved, one of the lowest PFF pass rush grades as a team last year. They have a reputation, New Orleans, of having 6 and 7 defensive linemen that can get after you. It hasn't been the case over the last few years. Marcus Davenport's been out, and David Onyemata has been out, and they have not replaced those guys effectively enough. So there's a lot of pressure on the Brian Brzezis of the world and Peyton Turners, these former first-round picks, to come good. I think Carolina's looking – I think they'll be better offensively. Now, do they have enough juice on defense? And I'll be watching the Saints offense. Clint Kubiak comes in, running. We've got another Shanahan-Kubiak derivative around the league. And I think that's the biggest wild card here. I've been a little bit sour on the Saints this offseason because I do think the personnel moves have depleted some of their depth all across both sides of the ball, to be honest. But does Kubiak get them on board, right? It's like friends of McVay and friends of Kyle going around the league and had a lot of success. Did they help rejuvenate Derek Carr here?
Yeah, and a big thing for the Saints, I think, is both trenches, really. Like, as you said, the defensive line has been surviving more on reputation than production recently, and the offensive line has fallen apart from where it used to be really good. They've taken steps to rebuild both sides, but it's still a work in progress. So what state are both lines in for New Orleans, I think, is the thing to watch for them.
Yeah, the offensive line, absolutely. Derek Brown, game wrecker on the other side for Carolina, got paid this offseason. Want to see him against that Saints interior. He usually has pretty good success against that group. I think if the Saints find that, if they can scheme it up, man, they had those red zone issues last year with Carr. If the scheme can get the high end of Carr, and again, I think some of the O-line moves might be working against them, but they do have playmakers to throw to. They got the great Rashid Shaheed on the outside.
Yep.
He's going to get his 4 catches for $120.
And you see, we're officially we've moved on from Taysom Hill as a quarterback. He's now officially a tight end.
And as people, like, he
Now,
should be maybe a running
I
back.
still think he's a running back, but point being, we're no longer
We've moved
clinging.
on from him as quarterback multiple times, haven't
Yeah,
we?
but now we've officially done it on the depth chart. We're no longer we've officially decided to stop that charade of saying that he was a quarterback.
I don't know. Running back, fullback, he was doing it all.
He's just a playmaker, including special teams.
I am looking forward to seing Taysom.
He's going to kick. He's going to return kicks, right? We're going to have him at some point. Now I know they've got.
He can't block and return at the same time. Well, I don't know which one you use.
Well, they actually have. The Saints are a team that appears to have really invested in this. Like, they claimed Kenny Nwangwu, right, from the Vikings when they released him, which was a weird release, by the way. Like, why you took a guy that was actually a kick return threat when there wasn't a kick return, and got rid of him the year where there is kick returns now. Strange. But anyway, the Saints pounced on him immediately. I think they now have multiple, all-pro returners back there, and in a world where most people have 2 kick return guys back now. So the Saints, either one of them is capable of scoring a touchdown in a given moment.
I want to just throw that out there really quick. There's a team or two that might dominate the new kickoff. Like, it could be the Chiefs tonight that we just see they have it down. They're going to be awesome at this, and that it changes things.
And whether or not
it changes the analysis, because we focus on offense, defense, right? It might change things for
whether or not you're great at it schematically or the plays you're pulling out. I like the idea as a hedge or as just a strategy this year. At the very minimum, let's get a guy we know is a really good kick returner, right? So the Saints pouncing on Nwangwu, and Pittsburgh, we didn't talk about. They signed Cordero Patterson like 6 minutes after the announcement that the kick return rule was changing. And Tomlin essentially said, the reason we are doing this is we're going to put a guy back there who knows how to return kicks, like who knows what he's doing. And Patterson might be determining what Pittsburgh is going to do at kick returns as much as the Steelers are. Like, they were basically like, we'll let him dictate how this is going to work.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's a big wild card in all of these games. Saints in the Dome. Dennis Allen, we talked about him yesterday a little bit, maybe a hot seat or whatever, but like the whole Dennis Allen era, he's a defensive guy. They have those games where they are just shut down in the Dome, and I'm kind of buying into that narrative aspect of things. Even though I've not loved where the Saints roster is this offseason, I think they come out looking pretty good in week 1 here. So Saints by 3.5. Where are you going with this?
I am going to go with Carolina. I'm buying into year 2 resurgence, rejuvenation.
10 snaps in the preseason of
resuscitation
Bryce Young?
of Bryce Young. I think they're going to look different, and they can cover 3.5.
All right, give me the Saints at home, covering the 3.5, and Harry will also take the Saints at home, covering the 3.5. Minnesota Vikings at the New York Giants, the last 1 o'clock game on Sunday. The Vikings are favored by 1.5 in New York, one of the few road favorites this week. What are you looking for in this one?
I mean, really, for Minnesota, I'm interested in their defense now. I think, sadly, their offense got an awful lot less interesting with J.J. McCarthy getting hurt. Darnold, we're going to have does he have 3 hot games to start the year? Can he at least excite people for a brief period of time before the wheels inevitably fall off? I guess there is the vague chance that Kevin O'Connell is the guy that can unlock the Sam Darnold that a lot of people thought was the best quarterback in that draft, or would be the franchise guy. I'm not completely ruling out the idea that that's on the table. I think it's a very small chance. And I'm more interested, when do the 3 good games come? Do they come right at the start and we can get engaged with the Vikings for a bit? Or do they come late in the year when they're already kind of done? So to me, the thing is the defense. Can Flores repeat what he did a year ago with better personnel? And does that make this group genuinely terrifying for a lot of teams?
And do they change schematically, try to rush 4, rely on those 3 edge rushers that they have now?
Right.
Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel and Dallas Turner. Do they rely on those guys, or are they using those guys to still create the indecision?
Chaos.
The chaos in quarterbacks, right? Turner and Van Ginkel are both good at dropping into coverage. Can they sucker Daniel Jones into a couple turnover-worthy plays? Then you have, you have weeks 1 through 3 Sam Darnold. Top 10 quarterback in weeks 1 through 3, or at least in his first 3 games over the last few years. That's sustainable. So you have early season Sam Darnold. Now and then you have the Giants, and people are talking about Brian Daboll taking play calling back, and the fact that you flip over his play card, and he's just got players. This is what Saquon Barkley was saying. He just has player-driven plays, kind of like in Madden,
right?
Where you just say, "Give me the Malik Neighbors play."
Yeah. Apparently,
that's how Daboll actually, gives himself reminders. I think we might see a lot from Malik Neighbors here early on against, some Minnesota corners who have had some issues this offseason.
It's going to be a really interesting coaching matchup. Remember last year you talked about Gus Bradley's defense being effectively one of the most transparent schemes. You know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
They line up essentially the same way pretty much every time. You know what that defense is going to be doing to you as an offense, and the question is, do you have the plays that can attack that, and can you execute? The Vikings, I think, last year were at the exact opposite end of that spectrum, where they were the most difficult to diagnose defense in football. And Brock Purdy went in there at the 49ers and threw a bunch of interceptions, not because he just didn't know what they were doing. Like, he couldn't diagnose what their rules were. It's not like the guy showed up and he misread. He just didn't know what they were planning to do to react to the play or what the 49ers offense was showing them. Now, theoretically, Flores is going to be able to do that with better personnel in several different places, and that makes them, I think, a very difficult defense for Brian Daboll to call plays against, but also the Giants' playmakers to execute against.
It looks like one of the least exciting matchups on paper, but I am looking forward to this. The chat's going back and forth on this. We got one comment saying the Vikings win 6-3. One guy says Vikings win. Another guy, easy money, bet the house on the Giants. You got a little back and forth here.
Now we got the Giants winning 24-6.
24-6. That I'm not necessarily expecting from lucrative. I think it's a good game though. Want to see Daniel Jones here. We're 2022. He was solid, at least with the run game and that aspect of things. I want to see how much they are able to feed Malik Neighbors. I want to see that offensive line for the Giants.
Defensive line too.
The D-line, too. Yeah, you're going to get a lot. It's a whole different defensive scheme. That's another wild card here for the Giants.
Yep.
Wink Martindale out. Anytime you're moving on or two, Wink Martindale, you're going – you've got some sort of extreme exchange happening here. The four-man rush, as much as I've been all over Brian Burns, as an all-around type of player, he's an outstanding pass rusher.
And by all over, you mean dumping on.
I have not been. He's not worth $28 million. He's got 15 sack potential. He looks good. He looks good so far in the preseason and what I've seen. Brian Burns, you have Dexter Lawrence, you have Kayvon Thibodeau. That four-man rush going up against the Vikings, I think, will be another matchup. Was the last time Minnesota and New York met in the playoff game?
The
playoff game, yeah.
Remember what happened in that game was Dexter Lawrence destroyed it. Like, Dexter Lawrence ruined that game for Minnesota.
The
Vikings could and should have beaten the Giants, except Dexter Lawrence said, nope, not happening. That's still theoretically the same matchup, right? As Dexter Lawrence going up against Garrett Bradbury at center. If he decides again, either the Vikings need to come up with some different plays, different ways of stopping Dexter Lawrence ruining that game, or that's another way the Vikings cannot win because Dexter Lawrence will simply run through Garrett Bradbury every play.
All the parallels there too. O'Connell and Daboll were both in their first year as head coaches. Now they're both in their third year with some indecisiveness. It's a pivotal third year for both of them, right? Because they both had a good first year, took some level of a step back in year two. It's a big year three. All right, Vikings by 1.5 in New York. Where are you going?
Where am I going? Minnesota.
I will take the Giants. I'll take the home underdogs. I don't love it, but I'll take the Giants. And Harry will take the Vikings.
I like that before I remembered that Dexter Lawrence single-handedly ruined that game the last time.
So that's one of my favorite things to do, right? We do our picks, and then we talk through the matchup.
Yeah.
And sometimes it sways you. And so you've got this. I'm battling between weeks 1 through 3 Sam Darnold,
right,
and Dexter Lawrence game wrecker. It's tough. That's the battle right here. So I'll lean Giants. Dexter Lawrence 10 pressures in this game. Las Vegas Raiders at the Los Angeles Chargers. It's your first 4 o'clock game. It's the 4:05 window.
4:05.
Chargers favored by 3 here. Tom Telesco revenge game. He built the Chargers, got hired by the Raiders as general manager. It's the debut for Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. coming off of his national championships. National championship. A lot of storylines here.
405 is also an interstate in L.A., right?
I don't know. The 405?
I believe it is.
Sounds right.
Yeah. You should know that more than I should.
I guess. I've never actually... that's like the one place I've never actually been to.
L.A.?
Yeah.
Were you not there for the Super Bowl when we were there?
I was not at the Super Bowl that year.
You weren't there?
I did not go that year.
Huh.
Still never been to L.A. Next year, Super Bowl.
Cool.
Hopefully be there.
Yeah. Anyway, I am most interested to see the Jim Harbaugh experiment, the dynamic. Like, I see your notes. You're going to be focusing on their wide receivers. I'm more interested in how they're going to play without wide receivers. They've named a 300-pound man as a fullback. This is Harbaugh. Harbaugh is going back to his roots.
That's what I meant to...
He's going back to hard-nosed, smash-mouth, monster, mauling football in 2024, and I'm here for it.
That's what I meant to look up, was how many snaps his fullback got.
In 2012?
What was there? Was 2012 his last year?
But that was our best year, right?
That was. Yeah, because 13, he was gone by then, I think. So I'm good. Well, keep talking while I'm looking this up.
Oh, I got to keep talking? Okay.
Yeah. I thought you had more to say.
No, I mean, I'm fascinated to see how Harbaugh's scheme is going to go. We've been, like, the draft was all sort of tongue-in-cheek laughing about how they would go offensive tackle over wide receiver because Harbaugh, likes that kind of thing. But he genuinely does. Like, they want to run the ball. They want to bring power back to the game in a way that doesn't necessarily rely on wide receivers.
So Bruce Miller
was
the fullback back then. And remember, I think did he get converted from defensive end?
He was a tight end, wasn't he?
I think he was a defensive end either in college or after his fullback years in the NFL. I think he was a defensive end in college at UCF that they turned into a fullback, much like they're doing right now. So
yeah, in college he played defensive end.
Yeah. So
he was named Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year in his junior and senior seasons.
449 snaps in that. He had a lot of like 25 to 40 snap games.
Right. But Bruce Miller was only listed at 254 pounds. The new guy has got 50 pounds on him.
Fullbacks with inflation. Fullbacks with inflation for Matlock. So yeah, I can't wait to see what this whole thing looks like, and just the Greg Roman fit. It just doesn't feel like a fit for Justin Herbert. And now you got Herbert with the foot injury.
That's not helping. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean because Roman's built all of his offenses around a running quarterback where he can run a little QB power and counter and build the pass game off of it, and it got capped out. The pass game hit ceilings in all of the previous places. When I don't want that to happen with Herbert, so prove it wrong. I would love to see that, but they completely overhauled their wide receiver room. Does Ladd McConkey hit the ground running immediately as a go-to guy? I just want to see who the receiver is and where they're targeting with the Chargers. Or are they gonna turn Herbert into we're just gonna throw 28 to 30 times a game because we like to run the ball? They're going to turn him into J.J. McCarthy at Michigan. I don't know.
If they can.
I want to see it.
I mean, so the thing about that is it wins. Like that, it's kind of like Russell Wilson back when, everyone was pushing for let Russ cook. Like at some point, you're not necessarily looking for the most efficient version of a quarterback or the most productive version. You're looking at what is the best way of winning a football game. And if they believe that the best way of winning a football game is for Justin Herbert to not have to throw the ball more than 25 times a game, he's well capable of executing that game plan and being incredible doing it and being incredibly efficient. The guy has led the league for multiple seasons in the lowest turnover-worthy play rate in the NFL. Like, he could be the best game manager the game has ever seen. And if that could easily make the Chargers the best team in the NFL if they can put everything else around him. It's just that we know he could and should be capable of more than that.
I don't think it would put him into just game manager mode, though. What it could do is let's use the Russ comp here, because you're absolutely right. The goal, we play to win the game here, Sam.
We play to win the game.
You play to win the game. In the Russ years, I always felt like Russ's efficiency numbers were inflated a little bit because the offense played completely to his strengths. He wasn't a pass-first quarterback. He had a ton of play action, downfield opportunities. And playing to your strengths isn't the cheat code, but the run-first mentality where you're more of a, not passenger, but you're not the driver of the offense. Herbert could play that game, potentially, if they want to get that out of him, getting him throwing the ball down the field off play action a lot. I just don't know if they have the people for that right now. Is Josh Palmer going to be your go-to guy? Is it Ladd McConkey? Is Brendan Rice, 7th-round pick, but working hard with Jerry? Is he going to be the guy? So this, man, I just can't wait to see what the Chargers look like. Matchup-wise, Joe Alt playing right tackle.
Baptism by fire.
Max Crosby
Yeah.
on the other side. That's going to be a great one to watch. Poor Joe Alt, as far as, here's your first start at right tackle in the NFL. Go up against Max Crosby.
Yeah.
On the other side, Raiders defense, do they keep up what they were doing all last year? Antonio Pierce had them playing much better down the stretch. Not just Pierce, but everything was better down the stretch last year. Can they carry that over? Antonio Pierce, as we've said, he's no longer an interim head coach. It's now your system. It's your training camp. It's your mini camp. It's your entire culture. It's some new players. Does that carry over here into his first full season?
And how quickly does it take for Devonta Adams to start getting upset?
He says he's not upset. He said he's not upset.
He's not right now. It's September the 5th.
Upset.
Games haven't started yet. I'm just saying, how fast into the season does he get upset?
Gardner Minshew will get the ball to him enough.
Will he?
I think he will. But they got good pass catchers. I want to see what Brock Bowers looks like. He was a little banged up, but should be good to go. Brock Bowers, year 2 of Michael Mayer, Devontae Adams, and Jacoby Myers. The offensive line should be good enough. I think the Raiders have a chance to do some damage on offense. Have some questions about their run game. Remember, we were in Vegas that said Zamir White had the 5th best odds to lead the league in rushing. I don't know if I trust that.
Yeah, that feels optimistic.
I'd almost want them putting the ball in Minshew's hands a little bit more with those pass catchers. And then who knows? Who knows what's going to happen here? So this is a fun matchup, man. It's a really fun matchup. I want to see this Raiders defensive line as well, besides Max Crosby.
Yeah.
Malcolm Kuntz had a nice year last year on the other edge. Christian Wilkins comes in. And you still have Tyree Wilson, last year's 7th pick, a 7th overall pick, waiting to be a breakout candidate here. So see if they can do some damage.
Yeah.
Good matchup against the Chargers O-line.
I think the Raiders are going to be a pretty good team, even with, the combination of Minshew and Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. So I like them. I like them to win this game outright.
Really?
Yeah. Well, remember, the other thing is,
3rd straight underdog for you here?
It's a home game for the Chargers, which means it's a road game.
Yeah, but the Raiders,
LA Raiders?
Raiders have more fans in LA than they do in Vegas.
A lot more. I mean, even if they were schlepping down from Oakland or Vegas, it would be a pretty short trip. But they're not. They're coming from a place they used to play in.
All right, you're taking the Raiders. I'll take the Chargers. Harry will also take the Chargers to cover the 3. I don't love this one either, but I'm looking forward to this game, 4:05. Denver Broncos at the Seattle Seahawks, kicking the season off for the second time in 3 years. The old school AFC West matchup here. Seahawks are now favored by 5.5. It was at 6 earlier this week, but you got Bo Nix hype coming through here.
Bo knows. Yeah, I mean, that's something to watch. Does Bo Nix look the same in the regular season as he did in preseason, which I think was very encouraging. But to me, the single most interesting thing about this game that I'm focusing on is just how good does this new look Seattle defense look? Can that change in scheme revitalize a group that was probably not playing at its best over the last year or so, but B, can the scheme actually unlock the best play of people like Leonard Williams, guys that have always been good but maybe never great? Can the extra value add that this defensive scheme brings really propel those guys to some new heights? And that going up against somebody like Bo Nix is a recipe for some problems for a rookie quarterback.
I can't get out of my head just the 2 to 3 weeks, or maybe the first half of the season it took for Mike McDonald's defense to really come together with the Ravens. So I just don't know if that's me overrating them blowing a big lead against the Dolphins and a couple other coverage busts, or like, is that a learning curve type of thing? And I'm balancing that against, saw him in person, Sam. And boy, did that Seattle defense look physical, and Reek Woolen on the outside, and Devin Witherspoon, and I think it's their best defensive line in 10 years. I think it had, and maybe it's next year it's their best defensive line in 10 years, but I think they have the personnel by mid-season to feel really good about this defensive line. With Byron Murphy coming in, I think he makes an impact. With all Boye Mafe in year 3 and all the edges that they've invested in the last couple of years, I think just getting a little bit better. So I like where Seattle could be defensively. I just don't know if there's a learning curve with McDonald coming in. But I'm definitely optimistic about where they're headed.
I mean, the year before that, they murdered the Jets in week 1. Like, I think this is a defense that has caused problems for teams early in the season.
The other aspect, we keep hearing these reports about the Denver Broncos defensive front being really good in camp and everything. But PFF grades, they were in the bottom 7 or 8 in both run defense grade and in pass rush grade last year. And remember the Broncos defense last year. Historically bad through 5 or 6 weeks. Pretty good for another 5 or 6 week stretch where they were forcing turnovers and giving the Chiefs trouble and all sorts of stuff. And then they're kind of, just okay down the stretch. It was like 3 different seasons for the Broncos defense that all added up into, like, if you just add it all up, it's below average. And I don't, other than the Jonah Ellises and Nick Benitos of the world who have potential, I don't know. I don't know if they're good enough up front.
Yeah.
And maybe the reports, they're going to surprise. Maybe they're going to surprise. But I don't love the Broncos defense on paper, other than the freshly paid Patrick Surtain, the second in the secondary, who has a great matchup against DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and company.
Yeah, it's a weird group, the defensive front, because there's a lot of guys there that have flashed quite high-end ability, but again, have not done it consistently. And do those training camp reports mean that this is the year they'll put it together, or is it always going to be a group that's capable of flattering to deceive, and it never quite comes together?
Anything else? I mean, Geno Smith heading into year 3 at quarterback here, I think he's primed to have another good year.
Yeah, I mean, the whole, I've said it a lot this offseason, that Seahawks roster looks like one of the best rosters in the NFL, top to bottom, right? If McDonald's scheme is able to boost the performance of the defense, if the offense is able to just keep going where they've been, Seattle could easily emerge quite quickly as a team that people were not taking seriously as a contender, but probably should be.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they hit the ground running, and I forget who said it, but DK Metcalf changed his diet this offseason. He's ready to be the best receiver in the world.
He give up the candy?
Was that Geno? Did he? I don't know.
Well, that was the famous thing about DK Metcalf, right? He would have he had 1 meal a day and then 3 bags of candy or something.
So he's going to
somehow
dominate.
That materialized into this chiseled freak show of an athlete.
Processed food's making a comeback, Sam.
If he's dropped the 3 bags of candy, who knows what he could do.
So DK Metcalf ready to go off. I think JSN's ready. I think that trio's ready to be really good in Seattle.
With the caveat of, is Tyler Lockett way on the way down? And
Yeah, for sure. And he's been battling injuries. I think some of the predictions are he'll be somewhat limited, but be out there. So again, I think JSN has a great opportunity to start stealing targets and show his ability as my wide receiver 1 from 2 years ago. You had him 2 behind Jordan Addison. Is that right?
Yeah.
Maybe 3. I like Seattle. And then Bo Nix. Look, I think Bo Nix could have some early season success. I just don't know if there's enough, big playability in there early on here. So give me Seattle to cover the 5.5. Where are you going?
Yeah, Seattle too.
And Harry's going to take Denver.
Oh.
Harry's got the Broncos.
Bo Nix believer.
Bo Nix believer. The line's moving that way in part because Harry took Denver. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
4 more games to discuss here. In the 4:25 window, the Dallas Cowboys at the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are favored by 2.5. Am I reading that right?
Yeah.
Browns favored over what is this, January? What's going on here? Certainly not. 2.5-point favorites against the Cowboys. Nobody's excited about the Cowboys after this offseason.
Least of all Cowboys fans.
Even Vegas.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's debut.
Yeah. With now, have you seen him, because he's still part of the Raiders minority ownership bid or whatever it is, he can't do any of the things that minor owners do.
Can't go to practice.
Can't watch practice, can't talk to opposing coaches. They can't do any of the things that his job actually entails. Can't be in production meetings with opposing coaches.
Yeah, people don't realize. I mean, we've been around Chris Collinsworth a lot for the last 8 or 9 years, and they spend a lot of time, the announcers, on conference calls with coaches. They go to the Friday practice, which is always the walkthrough where you actually get to see the plays. So that's why a lot of times you hear the announcers say, "Oh, we saw this on Friday. We saw this trick play. We saw this red zone play. Whatever it is." You miss a lot of those.
Yeah. So it's that's a pretty insignificant part of him not doing that job. So yeah, Tom Brady, what he's going to be like in the booth, don't really care. Deshaun Watson, I think is that's the thing for the Browns, right? Everything they're doing hinges on Deshaun Watson playing just competent football, and yet we haven't really seen that from him so far in Cleveland. Now we're hearing stuff like his shoulder's been a bit sore. They're resting him at times. He needs to pull it together. They need Deshaun Watson to be functional for this team to take advantage of, again, what is one of the best rosters in the NFL. So does that happen? Does Deshaun Watson actually take a step forward? And again, I don't need him to get back to being the player he was back in Houston when he was at his best. I just need competent level play, and this roster is good enough to take care of everything else. And then the other side of the ball, all those Dallas rookies that they're relying on. Can those guys keep up what has been a very impressive sort of debut so far? Tyler Guyton, Cooper Beebe, Marshawn Nealon, the guys. Can those guys actually hold up their end of the bargain and replace pretty high-level veteran players that they're coming in for?
I was having a great show, Sam, but I blew it.
You blew it?
I was supposed to talk about our friends over at Locker, so I'm going to do it right now.
You're going to do it right now
I'm going to do it right now in the middle of Cowboys-Browns. Because if you love showcasing your NFL knowledge with some skin in the game, Locker is a must-have in your gaming arsenal. Locker contests combine the strategic elements of DFS with the thrill of sports betting in an exciting new game format. Simple to enter and easy to learn, Locker contests allow users to test their wits by answering questions in real time during live NFL games, with the goal being to accurately predict the upcoming action on the field. So by correctly answering straightforward, game-based, multiple-choice questions such as which 49ers player will have the most receiving yards on the next drive, what will be the result of the Chiefs' next drive, users can earn points and move up the leaderboard in pursuit of cash prizes. Locker offers both free-to-play games with cash jackpots, as well as a variety of real money contests featuring different types of payout structures, including top-heavy contests and 50-50 contests. These contests are for every NFL game on the 2024 schedule, so users can pick and choose when to play, whether it's all the primetime games, strictly the games of your favorite team, or any other combination of your choice. Many contests are hosted by Locker's expansive partner network of athletes, celebrities, influencers, and with chat functionality embedded directly in the app, users can directly engage with the contest host as well as other participants. This dynamic and integrated social experience allows users to celebrate wins, lament bad beats, and talk smack as the action heats up and the game plays out. If you sign up for Locker through the 33rd team, use code 33rd, you'll get a $50 deposit match. So use code 33rd, that's 33RD. You get a $50 deposit match. Join today, discover an entirely new and unique way to cash in on your NFL viewing experience. And you can come join Sam and I as we play along with other experts at the 33rd team. Again, promo code 33rd, and you get a $50 deposit match.
Let's go. Sounds good.
All right, as far as Browns-Cowboys go, apologize for the little breakup there. But had to talk about our friends over at Locker. That sounds like an awesome thing to play together. The fact that I said Max Crosby is the guy that Joe Alt gets week one, and Tyler Guyton at left tackle gets Myles Garrett in week one. That's tough for the rookies.
That's not fun.
Again, like this, if you start your career with like a 28 PFF grade, like Dan Moore always seems to against Myles Garrett, it's okay.
28's a high watermark for him against Myles Garrett.
But yeah, I think Dallas's youth movement on the defensive line is definitely something to keep an eye on here. Plus, the Browns played a lot of feisty, tough man coverage last year, and in an offseason where you might not feel great about any of Dallas's moves. CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks. CeeDee Lamb's great. Does Brandon Cooks have enough juice to be the true number two? Do they have enough juice on that side of the ball to get open against tight man coverage that the Browns tend to play?
And by the way, this will now mark we've reached the season. The Dallas Cowboys Dak Prescott deal hasn't got done yet. So I think everyone was kind of working on the basis that this probably gets done at some point. It's just a pain. They got to, they're embracing this chaos, but they've now reached the season. It's not done yet. Dak Prescott is playing on the final year of his contract for the largest salary cap hit that any single player has ever accounted for, $55 million or something this year. Also the highest percentage, I think, of a salary cap that's ever been taken up by an individual player. And the number is only going higher as they approach the offseason. Dak might actually be on his way out in Dallas. We've reached the point where that's, I think, now a greater possibility because
we're getting closer. We're getting closer and closer to that being a reality, right?
Yeah.
Now, I thought that might happen with Lamar Jackson.
Sure.
that caliber of quarterback, so our friend Bob Sturm.
But they can't franchise him, right? That's off the table. That was part of the...
Yeah, I think so.
So that's different.
Our friend Bob Sturm texted me. I don't know if he's trying to write an article on this or whatever, but he was trying to think, and I was trying to think as well. Has any quarterback of that caliber, 31 years old, winning record every year type of... Has that guy hit free agency ever? Drew Brees was kind of like he had a shoulder injury.
Yeah.
That was the closest thing. Those guys get traded often because they're getting replaced by somebody directly, but do they just be let walk? To be let walk doesn't.
Nobody.
Cousins has been much older and probably not at Dak's caliber for the.
I don't think anybody.
Majority of his career.
Everybody has had an injury. Nobody I can think of that hasn't been coming off a fairly catastrophic injury of some kind. Like Culpepper was at that kind of level, but was coming off a really bad knee injury in the same year that Breeze was the shoulder injury. Peyton Manning coming off his neck injury. Like everybody has been coming off something pretty significant that would make you go, ooh,
Tom Brady was in his 40s.
Right.
There's not a lot of prime-ish type of quarterbacks that just hit free agency.
Yeah.
Ever. So could be a story. I mean, so I say this every year. The team that has the most uncomfortable offseason sometimes goes in with less hype than they should.
Yeah.
And you forget how good their foundation is or what their foundation is. Dallas's foundation is still really good. I think Micah Parsons is primed for his very best year. When you start to look back at his numbers, as great as Myles Garrett and TJ Watt and some of these other guys are, Parsons might be surpassing them as far as start to his career and consistency. He heads into year 4, could still be getting better. Want to see his fit in Mike Zimmer's new defense. I think Dallas is still really good, despite maybe not having this all-in type of offseason that did elevate their roster. Their foundation is good.
Yeah, though that does get undermined somewhat if Tyler Guyton just gets drowned by Myles Garrett. I mean, he might end up holding up his end of the bargain and actually not being a significant downgrade from Tyron Smith this year. Week 1 in his debut against Myles Garrett, that feels more difficult to envisage as an outcome.
So I'm looking forward to this game as well. The over-under is only 40.5, so expecting more of a defensive struggle in this one. Where are you going?
I think that's just. I mean, I think that's an endorsement of Cleveland's defense and an indictment in their offense.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I didn't check the weather on this. Never know Cleveland weather, even in September.
You never know.
Could be snow.
I'm going Browns.
I'll take Dallas. And Harry's also going to take Dallas. I'm going to push back a little bit on the lack of optimism of Dallas fans, the lack of offseason hype, and the fact that the Cowboys are still really good in September through December. Mm-hmm. Still a good football team. Washington Commanders at the Tampa Bay Bucks. Bucks favored by 3.5 here. Second game in the 4:25 window.
Yeah, a lot to look at here. Obviously, Washington, just everything they've done, the change all over the place. Jaden Daniels at quarterback obviously headlines that, but there's so much change and turnover across that entire team. That's going to be interesting to watch. And then from a Buccaneers perspective, is Baker Mayfield still good?
It's always a fair question.
Every time. Every week, it's a fair question.
Yeah. I don't know. Because things have changed.
Yeah.
You got Liam Cohen in calling the plays. Dave Canales is gone.
Gone.
Dave Canales, I mean, it depends on how you look at this. Dave Canales got a job with the Carolina Panthers in part because part of his resume was like, man, look what you did with Baker Mayfield.
Yep.
That guy hasn't been good in 3 years. Look what you did. You guys made it to the final 8. The guy was playing really well. 6-year contract. Head coach with the Panthers. Was Dave Canales a big part of Baker's resurgence? I think he'll look similar to last year. That's where I think it lands.
Okay.
Mike Evans is still tough. Chris Godwin playing in the slot, presumably, and Liam Cohen's offense here, going up against Dan Quinn. People were bringing up the fact that Chris Godwin was fed often when the Bucs played Dan Quinn a couple of years ago with the Cowboys. I think we could see some of that. I think the Bucs carry over a lot of their momentum from last year, that they're just a good, solid team. I don't know if they're winning the South or making a little playoff run again, but I think they'll be a good competitive team.
Yeah.
And then Washington, you mentioned, it's as big of a wild card, I think, as Tennessee, because there's enough optimism around Jaden Daniels that you could see him having a really good rookie season. And then it's just he's a rookie. So you could temper expectations. But I could see Jaden Daniels having a really good season. I could see the Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner additions on the defense and just all of the roster turnover in Washington just making them look better and more competitive week in, week out.
And a lot of these additions were they were culture additions. They were guys coming in to completely change everything. Frankie Louvu was a tone-setting type of defender. Bobby Wagner obviously has endless experience at an incredibly high level. Guys like Dorrance Armstrong coming in to change. Mike Sainristil even in the draft. Like, these are guys that are supposed to change a culture and change the tone of how a specific unit is playing. So that's going to be fun to see the kind of impact that all has, particularly on defense, I think. And then Jaden Daniels will be doing the bulk of the heavy lifting on the offensive side of that transformation.
Commanders are one of those teams. We mentioned Pittsburgh earlier, like Van Jefferson as their number 2 receiver. I think the Commanders have one of the weaker wide receiver 2 options in the NFL with De'Ami Brown slated to get, it's De'Ami Brown and Byron Pringle and Noah Brown, fresh off, coming out of Houston. Those guys opposite Terry McLaurin. Remember, they opted into this by trading Jahan Dotson to the Philadelphia Eagles. Want to see what this offense looks like, beyond Terry McLaurin. Jaden Daniels, I think, will get the ball downfield to him. I think they have a chance to run the ball effectively. Cliff Kingsbury's offenses historically have, and you get Jaden Daniels as the run threat. But I think their downfield passing attack, every time I talk to Commanders people or media, are we going to be explosive enough? And I think De'Ami Brown can flip the field once or twice a game, maybe. But I don't know if that consistency is there to be a high-volume option opposite Terry McLaurin.
I think this will be a pretty interesting game schematically as well, in terms of Todd Bowles' defense that blitzes the crap out of people,
Yes.
Highest blitz rate in the NFL generally in a given season, versus whatever the latest iteration of the Cliff Kingsbury offense is, which likes quick game, which likes to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands quickly. Do they have immediate and obvious answers for the blitz? Is it a massive advantage in their direction? There was a year where Kyler Murray against the blitz was spectacular. Generally, his numbers against the blitz were pretty good under Kingsbury in Arizona. That back and forth chess match will be pretty interesting.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing that for sure. Like that when Todd Bowles was blitzing Philadelphia like crazy and they didn't have answers, we were blaming the offensive coordinator and everything. You usually see that against rookies. Does Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels, do they have answers for Todd Bowles and his aggressiveness? I think Tampa Bay's done a really nice job building this roster, keeping it competitive. Favored by 3.5 here at home against the Commanders.
I'm going with the Commanders. I believe they will cover that line.
Well, I made my picks earlier today. I kind of go on instinct, an initial feel.
Vibes.
It was Washington.
Okay.
So I'm also taking Washington. I believe Daniels is going to have a lot of success early on. And Harry's going to go Tampa Bay.
Okay.
Bucks by 3.5.
Baker believer.
2 more games. Los Angeles Rams at the Detroit Lions. Great rematch from the playoffs last year. It's your Sunday night football game. The Lions are favored by 3.5 here. Over-under is 51.5. It was kind of a shootout in the playoffs, and the man in Vegas is expecting something similar.
Man in Vegas. This is another one a little bit like the Bengals Patriots earlier, where it's not even that I feel old with this kind of line. It's just amazing how the league has changed in a few years. From the Detroit Lions are now favored against the Los Angeles Rams. A few years ago, that would have seemed absolutely ridiculous, and yet that's where it is, and I think it's completely legitimate. Detroit are now one of the established favored teams in the conference. They are a team that was a couple plays away from a Super Bowl a year ago. Had they made it last year, it wouldn't have been unjust. It wouldn't have been undeserved. They would have been the team that should have been there and would have been a fascinating Super Bowl. They came up just short. They've reinforced. They've gotten better theoretically in the offseason, and not just in the way that everybody gets better by, hey, they had a draft. They added a bunch of young players that we don't know anything about. They added some veterans that should obviously and objectively move the needle in a positive direction for them. Somebody like DJ Reader coming into the middle of that defense, it would be very difficult for him not to have a positive impact on this team, assuming he's out there healthy. So I think Detroit are absolutely a legit contender.
I think you get it's a nice test for both teams and a lot of their offseason additions, right? The Rams re-solidified the interior of their offensive line, re-signing Kevin Dotson, who played well last year, moving. You got Steve Avila, Jonah Jackson in there, going up against a DJ Reader, who's supposed to play. for the Lions. Then the Lions corners, they overhauled that room this offseason. Carlton Davis in, of course, drafting Terrion Arnold and S. Rakestraw, testing those guys against Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. So I think you're like Detroit's additions in particular getting tested right away in this matchup. Other thing, I mean, I was raving about Stafford's play last season. I think it was one of the, again, I don't know where he ended up statistically. I don't remember. Oh, he was the guy that had like 4 touchdowns, and I'm over here like, oh, Stafford's having a career year, but like the fantasy people were upset and the stat people were upset, but he was balling out last season. If Stafford does that again, and those dudes are healthy, and they got Kyron Williams running the way he was last year with Blake Corum, and man, the Rams have a chance to be really, really good this year.
Yeah, he had 3 touchdown passes in the first 4 games, and in those games he had 12 big-time throws.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's what the film was showing. I mean, Stafford had a well-dispersed bunch of big-time throws last year, where a lot of times they would come in bunches at other times in his career. I thought it was one of his more consistent seasons, start to finish, had the thumb injury in the middle of it. So the Rams could be really good. I think Detroit is still in that class of the NFC until they show some kind of regression or Jared Goff comes back down to earth. They got Ben Johnson back in there calling plays, all the playmakers to throw to. I really like the way Detroit's looking as well.
Yeah, and the other thing is, so this is a fascinating test it's the first game the Rams are going to be playing without Aaron Donald. It's going up against what could be the best offensive line in the NFL this year. Probably should be. I already think that simply taking Aaron Donald out of that defensive line changes everything that team has dealt with for years now.
Got to rely on the youth.
Yeah, but it's a completely different world now because the attention that used to go to Aaron Donald every single snap is no longer doing that. I think the Kelseys were talking about Donald recently, and they were like, he's literally the only player that we ever spent the entire week just game planning for him. Like, the week was just, how do we make Aaron Donald not ruin this game? Never did it for any other player. Anybody. Never any of the elite edge rushers that they play, and they played a lot of them. Never for any other defensive tackle. Every time they played Aaron Donald, that was the game plan. That was every week for the Rams. None of that exists anymore. So now you're already going up against what could be the best offensive line in the NFL, and that line doesn't have to spend its entire week figuring out how Aaron Donald doesn't impact the game. Instead, they're just going to be figuring out how do we destroy Kobe Turner year 2.
And Jared Verse.
Right.
And Braden Fisk.
Yeah. I mean, they've got players there, but my point being, it's a totally different world now that every single team they're playing is not spending their week just figuring out how to stop Aaron Donald.
I believe the Rams feel like they've added 2 first-round caliber defensive linemen, both out of FSU, to pair with Kobe Turner, and that's going to be enough.
But this is now the first game we're going to see how that dynamic actually plays out. Yeah. What does this look like now that teams are not spending a week dedicating their run time to Aaron Donald alone?
Trench matchup will be awesome to watch because I think both offensive lines look good. Lions absolutely starting 5 should be the best in the league if they all stay healthy. One other off-season addition that I want to highlight, a little underrated. The Lions are known for their aggressive 4th down decision-making under Dan Campbell. They've been awesome in that regard, whether they're underdogs or favorites. They've stayed the course and been very aggressive, and I think it's worked wonders for them and won a lot of games in part because of it. The Rams with McVay have been more on the conservative side. McVay is a great coach, but he's still tended to be a little bit more conservative. They added John Stryker this offseason, Stretch, as he's known in NFL circles. And Stretch used to be Vrabel's right-hand man as far as game management goes. And Mike Vrabel, even though he doesn't necessarily want the analytics departments in Tennessee, was a little bit he was forward-thinking when it came to 4th down decisions and when to jump off sides. Like a lot of the game management stuff he did a pretty good job with. So it's just another added wrinkle, I think, where if McVay becomes a little bit more aggressive on some key 4th downs, and he was in the Super Bowl. That was a key 4th down that helped them win the Super Bowl against the Bengals. But more consistency there, I think, could make the Rams even more dangerous.
And when you see those preseason games where he's on the headset talking to the booth and stuff, there might not be any more clear-headed coach in the NFL during games, when live plays are happening, when things are going on around him. You can imagine some people who just don't want necessarily that overload of information getting hurled in their direction.
Oh, he can handle it.
Right. Sean McVay is not somebody that's going to get distracted, phased, or overwhelmed by here's some additional information on this play that might help you decide better what you're going for.
And then you just have general storyline-wise, Matthew Stafford going back to Detroit as he did in the playoffs. Remember last year in Week 18, it was Sam Darnold versus Carson Wentz in a Niners-Rams game that determines that this would be the second-round matchup, Rams versus Lions, or the first-round matchup. I loved all that. I love the storyline aspect. I love that it's in prime time. Stafford, Goff, the whole thing. It's going to be awesome. Lions by 3.5. Where are you going with this one?
I'm going with Detroit. I'm buying the Super Bowl contending Detroit Lions. And I think Super Bowl winning in my predictions, right?
Did you pick them to win?
I think I call them winning, beating the Chiefs in the Super Bowl.
You're a hero. Yeah, that's right. You did.
Me, Barry Sanders on the parade together. That's what's going to be.
You're going to be in when the social media, because they've added us to their social media montages before on the negative side.
You think they came with us? Are they following Check the Mic, the Detroit Lions?
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Because we should alert them that you picked them for the Super Bowl, so when they do win it, we go back to the montage.
We know the montage is always the sort of the arc, right? Is always they were all against us. The media all said we couldn't do it. So that's where you show up, right? Usually out of context. But, you would be dumping on the Lions' chances of winning. And then it's like, but look what happened. It doesn't work the other way around. You can't be like, we justified it. We backed up what the media was telling us. Yeah. So we're not going to show up if I'm saying
they usually don't highlight the positives. Yeah. You're right. So you're going with your Super Bowl champ pick, the Lions. I'm going to take the Rams.
Restore the roar.
As underdogs, 3.5-point underdogs. I'll take the Rams to cover. I think it'd be a good close game.
Okay.
I think that hook there, man, could be a 3-point game. Wasn't it last year? Harry's going to take the Lions. And he was like, dude, how are you going to take the Rams? Lions are good.
Right.
That was his analysis.
What are you doing?
What are you thinking? Yeah. And Monday Night Football.
Here we go.
Game 16 out of 16. Bring out the flag. New York Jets at the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are favored by 4.5 here. Monday Night Football. They used to do the doubleheader in Week 1. Do you like the doubleheader or you like the island game for Week 1?
I don't think I like a doubleheader on Monday night. I think I do like the one.
Well, I got bad news for you.
Oh, yeah?
There's 3 of them this year.
Yeah.
They're just dispersed.
Sure.
So this is what tends to happen. We get to Monday, you send me a text at like 7 p.m. It's like, there's 2 games tonight. Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
Who knows? Maybe it's a different world now that we're all we're out on our own.
I used to like
and I don't have to write a recap on it.
You don't have to write a recap on it. If anyone at the 33rd team needs Sam to write a game recap, please
it's not happening.
Email him and let him know.
ChatGPT will write you a good one. I'm not touching it.
You should do that. We should just have like a running doc of ChatGPT game recaps and then just recite it on Monday morning.
Sure.
All right, let's go. What are you looking for in this one?
I mean, it's last year all over again.
Aaron Rodgers rematch against his Achilles.
I just want to get what we were supposed to have last season. I want to get the actual game with Aaron Rodgers waving his American flag and, everyone hand on heart singing the national anthem and just the whole pageantry of it all. And then it got robbed. It got taken away from us by a stupid Achilles, right? Nobody even knows what that is until it snaps and it's not working anymore. This Achilles robbed us of all that stuff, right? Now we're going to get it. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers with flyovers and B-52 bombers and American flags and everything going up against the San Francisco 49ers. I'm here for it. I want to see it. I should have got it last year. We deserved it last year, and it was robbed. So I want it now.
Now I'm ready to go, man.
See?
Ready to go. Quick reminder to hit the thumbs up if you're in the chat, by the way.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel.
Smash that like button, as
Smash the like,
Steve says.
as you say. But they're going up against the Niners.
The little bell as well, apparently, is very important.
The bell. Yeah. Oh, yes. You get the alerts.
Yeah.
Hey, we're live. You get the alerts. Mm-hmm. Hit the subscribe, the bell, and the thumbs up. It's 3 clicks. It's 3 clicks away from being fully engaged here with Check the Mic. But they're going up against the Niners. Last year, Week 1, I remember, they played the Steelers. And I was buying, the Steelers, they were unstoppable on offense. Big breakout season for Kenny Pickett incoming. And then they didn't complete a pass beyond the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And the Niners were unstoppable in Week 1. And right now they got Trent Williams back and Ayuk is back. And I think Purdy's trending in the right direction too. We're going to have more fun Brock Purdy discussions this year when he's got a 129 passer rating through 6 weeks and 10.9 yards per attempt. And it's like, the system's doing it again. And it's like, what if Brock Purdy is going to get a little bit better? And the system's still great. Kyle still stands on his head and picks all the good plays. And they got all the playmakers to throw to. Niners look like a powerhouse.
Yeah.
The only piece that I'm less optimistic about with the Niners is their defensive line depth because of Eric Armstead leaving and just some of the turnover, right? They were loaded last year. So defensive line depth. But I think the Niners are just in position to take care of business and get, back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great matchup. These are two really good teams on paper. We're finally going to get to see Rodgers to Garrett Wilson and all those kinds of things. The Jets' offensive line should be significantly improved over a year ago, which is helpful because they're running up against at least a couple of elite players in Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave. The depth maybe isn't there, but the star power certainly is for that 49ers defensive line. And then you've got San Francisco, their offense, which is amazing, unstoppable, incredibly star-laden, going up against the Jets' defense, which has been an elite unit over the last couple of years. And, of course, Robert Saleh used to coach that defense in San Francisco, came from that system, knows how the Shanahan offense works. Robert Saleh going up against his old team and his old his old offensive mastermind in Kyle Shanahan. I mean, that's going to be an interesting matchup.
A lot of great storylines here. I mean, look, what does Aaron Rodgers actually look like as well? I keep repeating. What's up?
I was just going after a fruit fly, but I
get him. Get him.
Went out of range. Got him.
Nice.
Got him. Nailed it.
Gone. He's done. What does Aaron Rodgers look like? We've repeated a few times here. The 40-year-old quarterback. Tom Brady was 44 years old. The arm looked great. He was still, leading the league in major categories and everything. But that's the outlier, right? Brady's been the outlier. I don't think Rodgers will change physically, other than maybe movement. Does the quick twitch movement, like when Brady and Breeze regressed a little bit, it felt like just a little bit of pocket movement, a little bit of awareness, a little bit of maybe I don't want to get hit as much as I used to. Does that affect Rodgers? I think that's my bigger question. The zip will still be there. I think he's going to make great throws. I think him and Garrett Wilson are going to cook. I just want to know if there are going to be some pieces of Rodgers' game that are missing to the point where he is just good and not great, and if that's enough for the Jets. It could be if they play the way they have defensively the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But is he just good and not great at this point in his career? I think is what I'm looking for with Rodgers.
Yeah. I think even good, not great Rodgers with that roster is a top-end team. I mean, that's the sort of bottom line for me is that they don't even need him to be MVP Rodgers. If he's just decent, they're in really good shape.
Oh, man, it's a great way to finish the weekend.
Yeah,
it's a really great way to finish the weekend. We said this last year about Rodgers against the Bills, and we all got deflated after 4 snaps, unless you were a Bills fan. The Jets still won the game with a walk-off punt return, by the way. So it's going to be a great just can't wait. 16 games of fun this weekend. So how does it all end up on Monday night? 4.5-point spread for the Niners
I'm not
here.
Quite willing to go as far as saying the Jets will win this game outright on the road in San Francisco against an elite team, but I do think they're going to cover 4.5. I do think they're going to keep it within that. I think it'll be a close game.
Do you know what Jets-Niners Week 1 reminds me of?
No.
For the 6 fans that remember this. 1998, I believe, Week 1 matchup.
Vinny Testaverde against 98?
It's more about overtime, Garrison Hurst.
Okay.
96-yard walk-off.
Steve Young? Was that still Steve Young?
Steve Young was still there, I believe. Let me double-check this, 1998. Because I might be making up how long the run was.
Right.
I might be making up who the quarterback was. I might be making up the year.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it was a walk-off 96-yarder by Garrison Hurst. There we go. 36-30.
Okay.
September 6th.
Good start.
1998.
Yeah. Come on, hit me with some box score.
Steve Young.
Headlines. Steve Young, there we go. Got it right.
Garrison Hurst. Yep. So let me just get the actual box score. Hold on, sorry. So that's what it was. And the final touchdown was 96 yards.
There you go.
Look at that. My memory still works.
Was it Testaverde? Did I get that right too?
Yeah, it was Testaverde.
Okay.
So the Jets made it to the AFC Championship. They beat my Jags in the divisional round to go to the AFC Championship to lose to the Broncos.
Perfect.
So that was 1998. Glenn Foley was the quarterback of this game, though.
Glenn Foley.
Testaverde took over later. Glenn Foley in this game goes 30 for 58 for 415. 3 touchdowns and a pick.
The list of quarterbacks to have 400-yard games is just fascinating. Remember when like Billy Volek did it back to back? Was it 3 weeks in a row or just
It
two?
wasn't 400 yards, I don't think.
It was. He did
Was
back to back 400-yard games.
Kellen Moore has a 400.
That's what I'm saying. Like the list of quarterbacks with 400-yard games is either superstar all-pros or like ridiculous no-names.
You're looking for other fun stuff that we could do on the channel. We should do like a special short, like a special side video on the YouTube channel. The quarterbacks who have thrown for 400 plus yards.
Yeah.
The craziest quarterbacks who have thrown for 400. But Glenn Foley's one of them. Steve Young goes 26 for 46 for 363, 3 touchdowns and a pick. So the Glenn Foley, Steve Young head-to-head matchup was epic, but it's Garrison Hurst with the 96-yard walk-off touchdown in week 1 to give the Niners the win 36-30.
All right.
But that's what Jets-Niners reminds me of. So I'm going to say Christian McCaffrey walk-off touchdown to win this thing by a score. And so they cover the 4.5.
Yeah.
There you go.
So we're both going with the cover.
I'm taking the Niners.
Oh, you're taking the Niners cover?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Jets. You're Niners.
McCaffrey's on the Niners.
Sure. Where's Harry?
Harry's taking the Niners as well.
Okay.
He picks the favorites in every game, other than New England.
Smart.
It's possible. Hey, the man's got a method. How are you going to question it? Is that it? We didn't go 3 hours. That's it.
Yeah, it's done.
2 hours, 15 minutes. All right. Here's the deal. We do this every Thursday. We go game by game, give you something to look for, give our picks. We come back every Monday morning at 7 a.m. live on YouTube. You don't have to be there at 7 if you want to be. That's great. We used to go head-to-head with Good Morning Football is what I used to always say. Good Morning Football, scared to compete.
Now they're in the West
Move
Coast.
their show back an hour.
Yeah.
All right? So we got a free window, competition-free at 7 a.m. on a Monday morning.
It's because all those people stuck on the 405.
They're stuck on the 405 on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Oh, man. What's there? I got to talk to P. Shrags and Brant and those. Like, what's their sleep schedule like?
Brutal.
Like, they were doing some show at night the other night. It's like, isn't this your bedtime? It's 8 a.m. It's 8 p.m. Eastern.
Don't want any part of that.
Go to bed. You got to wake up early.
That being said, we're about to roll out here tonight after the game and do a live reaction.
Yeah. I mean, the other reason why you might want to subscribe to the YouTube channel right now, we have the record button. We have the button access right now, Sam. We can go live on this YouTube channel at any time, whenever we want. You have access.
Yeah, you don't have access.
I don't have. I haven't been given access yet.
We wouldn't give you that.
So we might, if something crazy happens tonight, and it will, we're going to react to it. So we'll probably be live on YouTube tonight. Probably be live after the Brazil game on Friday. There might be multiple times we're just pressing record and going live on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you know when we're live.
Right. Those will be video only. They'll be on YouTube. They're not going to go up in the audio feed. We've already given you, however many hours a week of audio footage. We're not going to swamp you with an additional 10-minute reaction thing.
Right.
But you can find those on YouTube.
YouTube exclusive.
Yep.
The other thing that could be YouTube exclusive that we got to talk to the producers about this. We haven't locked this in. Instant reaction on Sunday night. We don't know if we're doing it, but be ready on YouTube. We might have that instant reaction before Sunday Night Football. Just a quick hitter coming out of the 1 and 4 o'clock games.
But the big thing is we're here. We've made it. A huge thank you to everyone that has followed us here from our show at PFF over to the 33rd team, over to Check the Mic. We love all you guys. It's going to be a fun season. We're going to build this thing, make it as big as possible. Remember, come join us on the Discord.
Yeah, community. We're trying to build the community because we've really enjoyed the interaction with all of our listeners and viewers through the years.
And join those. Once you get to the Discord, you can find those sleeper pick'em leagues where you could pick against us and Harry, Steve's 9-year-old child. Yeah. Who will have undoubtedly the best picks of the three of us. So join the Discord. You can find that my pinned tweet. No, not my pinned tweet. My link tree in my profile on Twitter at Sam Monson NFL. You can find the link tree there. That'll take you to the Discord. The Discord will take you to the sleeper leagues where you can pick against me, Steve, and Harry over the course of the season. There's also a survivor pool there that we'll be doing every week as well. So these picks you hear us do on the preview show are also going to be trackable, and you can play against us. So come join, hang out. It's going to be awesome.
Beautiful. Well done. All right. That's all for us today. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again on Monday morning with our Week 1 NFL review.